Appreciate it, Mr. Cena. Thank you.
Go get a picture.
Yes.
Ready? 1, 2. Jock, can my little boy get one with you too?
Yep. Appreciate it.
Take a picture with him. Ready? Ready? Say cheese, Julian. Look. Julian. Say cheese. Julian. Thank you so much.
Mr. Cena, can we get one autograph each, please? Just one, please.
John, can I shake your hand? Thank you.
John, just one each, please.
Thank you.
John, just one each, please.
You know, I just realized earlier today, we don't have a Monday night intro for video. When I had the falling out with Kev 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was, Mish and I were doing Breakfast Soup Raw immediately after. And we had an intro for Breakfast Soup Raw, and then we just never changed it. We just did a generic intro. So I got to work on that. What's up, everyone? We're back on YouTube for Monday nights. I think this was a long time coming. Look, I'm wearing an old school Don, Toni, and Kevin Castle show shirt tonight just to pay a little love and tribute to my fallen co-host. I can't believe in 2 weeks it's 1 year already. But I am back on Monday nights. For my Discord family, Don Cena and GQ and everybody who's there right now, I'm trying to work out some bugs so I could stream live, not only on YouTube, but on Discord as well. Not everybody frequents YouTube, but fact of the matter is there was just way too many of you out there that like to go on YouTube Monday nights, check out multiple shows. And it's a lot for me to ask you to go to YouTube, check out somebody's show, and then switch over to Discord to hear what I'm talking about, then switch back over to YouTube and hear that. So we got to make it easier. Plus, you know, we got to expand the shows. It's our time. It's about time we remind everyone who the true OG is. I mean, doing this since 1997. And I always say what I mean what I say, and I take pride in giving all of you for decades the most honest, blunt, accurate news, opinion, analysis, and never try to use you for hits, views, ad revenue, clickbait. You know, we just, and it doesn't mean you have to agree with everything that we talk about. And I guarantee there's going to be a couple of things today you're not going to agree with on this show. But I will tell you one thing in closing before we move on to the show itself. And there's a reason why I played the John Cena clip at the beginning. It is not easy to watch Raw, especially tonight, a big, not only middle finger to Netflix, but a middle finger up the anus on Netflix of what they did tonight. And I know a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about with the rewind deal. Oh, I am pissed the fuck off over that. But it is not easy to go live on video, prepared with photos and notes and recapping Raw and typing and literally go live 5 minutes after. But I think we got it ready. We're doing it too long to screw up now, right? But, you know, for those that want to know what I'm talking about with Netflix, if you missed Raw live tonight, decent Raw. Liv Morgan and Stephanie McMahon finally trying to sell us a little bit more why we should care about that match. You know, we'll talk about Roman Reigns, the young boy, and CM Punk and the development with the Usos, Seth Rollins, got a few things. But I was so angry tonight because, guys, check this out. I go in my little room over here to, you know, just get the video set up, do a couple of checks before Raw starts. And Raw started about 15 minutes earlier. So because I have Netflix and because, you know, I will skim through, you know, match here and there. No Natty or Maxine Dupree tonight, thank God. But, you know, I try to catch up while Raw is on. And, you know, I do my prepare. I go in my bedroom. I turn on Netflix 15 minutes into the show. And I go and try to hit the rewind button to see what I missed. And there's no rewind button. I go on my phone and I load Netflix on my phone, and I go to start from the beginning. And there's no start from the beginnings anymore. This is the latest tactic by Netflix to try to force you to watch literally the entire show and live. Not an hour later, not 10 minutes into the show, 30 minutes into the show. It's you snooze and you lose. What the fuck? We're paying a membership amount every single month. You shouldn't make it harder for us to watch it 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late, an hour late. You know, not everybody could tune in at exactly 8 p.m. And, you know, I wish we could write this off as a glitch. It's not a glitch. That's a software change. And a big middle finger up the ass of Netflix tonight. I already canceled my ESPN membership. And I'm finding ways where I could watch WrestleMania online without fucking ESPN. It's not that I don't want to pay for it. Maybe I'll get a VPN and watch it on Netflix. I don't know. We'll see. But, you know, Netflix really pissed me off tonight because it's not easy to go in here, even during the 2.5 hours, start typing something, then you hear Becky Lynch in the other room, and she's talking about, you know, I went home to the people that I love, and blah, 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 and why she came back. Because her daughter is skipping around the house and listening to AJ Lee's. And I'm like, what did she say? What did she say? And there's no rewind button. I literally have to watch YouTube or Twitter X clips to like back up for it. Wow, big fuck you to Netflix tonight, man. But how are we all feeling about Monday Night Raw tonight? Decent show. Interesting how they went off the air. Now CM Punk is old and proud of it. Getting laid out on his ass, you know, being put to the table. I'm kind of fearing what's going to happen next week because for any of you out there that tune into some of my other shows, something that I've been worried about the last week and a half, because we still have, 4 Raws before WrestleMania? We have 3 more before Mania 4. I think we have 4 because Brock Lesnar had 6 appearances and this is appearance number 2 now, right? So I think there's 4 Raws before, well, it's April 19th, so it's got to be 4. The 30th, the 7th, the 14th. No, 3. Is it 3? I think it's 3. The 30th, the 6th, the 13th, and that's it. That's it. So we have 3 Raws left. I hope they don't do the no-touch rule. I mean, Brock Lesnar and Obafemi, I don't think you need to do that. Fans want pull-aparts. Fans want that moment where each guy is in the corner, kind of like years back, I think it was Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe. You know, just the people chanting holy shit just for pull-aparts and everything. You got to keep that physicality going with Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. Brock is not a talker. You know, Paul Heyman does all the talking. We want to see action leading up to Mania. So Brock and Oba I'm not worried about. I'm worried about Cody and Randy Orton, or Roman Reigns and CM Punk. And I don't think they'll do the no-touch rule with Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton because you know Cody. Cody wants to bleed for Mama Rhodes leading into Mania. We got a taste of it last week, but you got to see more blood before WrestleMania. When it comes to CM Punk and Roman Reigns, like I don't picture Nick Aldis doing that. I picture Adam Pearce. Enough! Enough! That's it. Enough. We're not jeopardizing this WrestleMania match. If either one of you lay hands on each other again before WrestleMania, you are suspended. Your match is off. You will not get a shot at the championship. You will be stripped of the title. Blah, 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 blah. That's what I'm worried about. And I hope they don't do it. We got 3 left. And you know what I kind of was left with tonight as Raw went off the air? Are we going to get Jey Uso versus CM Punk once again? I mean, I would think CM Punk is probably going to wrestle at least once before WrestleMania, and I have a feeling they may be leading to Jey Uso and CM Punk. And my God, Madison Square Garden next week, you could have the Usos probably drop the tag titles, you know, in a street fight. Do you do it the week after? Possibly. You know, next week, a lot of people think that the Usos are going to drop the tag titles. You know, I don't like when you hear Jey Uso tell Jimmy, man, I don't care about the tag titles right now. You know, that's, I don't know. Because we don't want to see Jimmy and Jay having falling out again. Lord knows we don't want another WrestleMania match between those two. And obviously that's not going to happen. But yeah, there is the push to WrestleMania is in full swing. And, you know, we'll recap Raw. We got a lot of news to get into. Just look at the synopsis for tonight. I definitely want to get into a bunch of topics, as we always do on Monday nights, but now we're on video again, and we have interaction as well. The John Cena clip at the beginning, I loved it. I loved it, not just because he's posing for the kids, but I love the person who uploaded the video, because that's like the fat, bearded, I know I'm heavy too, but it's like the fat, bearded, hick, Floridian photographer version of Pom Pom Girl. The guy that uploaded that video was the guy that was seeking an autograph from John Cena. They're autograph hounds. You see them happen in airports. You see them in New York City. You see them everywhere. And John Cena was at MegaCon in Orlando, Florida this weekend. And there is a little news coming out of it related to WWE. But that video, John Cena was leaving. And John Cena saw a couple of kids with their father, you know, are on the side area, I guess by the parking lot. John Cena stops, gets out of the car, and wants to take pictures with the kids. And right away, because the autograph hounders, those seekers are right where the entrances are, you know, on the sides. Right away, you know, can I get a handshake? Can I get a picture? Can I get an autograph? Just one autograph. Please, John, just one autograph. And John Cena basically was like, fuck you. You can't see me. You know, just he does it for the kids and he leaves. And I love it because these people put this shit online trying to make it seem like, you know, John Cena's a scumbag, wouldn't even sign one autograph. But at MegaCon, he was asked about his WWE future. And he did mention that WWE and him are trying to work out his next path to contribute. They're trying to figure out what John Cena's role is in the future. Personally, I don't see him scouting talent. He's a Hollywood actor now. You know, plus you see the physical pain that the guy's in. It's unbelievable, like how bad his back is. We see some of those videos and it's like, holy shit. And I don't think he's doing it for sympathy because he knows cameras are around. But, you know, you would think, you're like, you see me, like I'm fat, you know, and I admit it and I'm working on it. But, you know, like if I see a camera around, suddenly like my upper body would be like try to make my seem like this. John Cena, when there's cameras around, you think he would suck up the pain a little bit and be like, and just walk around like nothing is wrong. And he's hunched over. He's got a lot of problems. AJ Styles, scouting future talent, but doing it in the comfort of his own home. You know, not going to indie events, which is smart because AJ Styles would be the center of attention if he showed up in an indie wrestling event. So what is the future with John Cena and WWE? One thing is for sure, he will be part of it. Personally, I think he's best suited to make appearances here and there. You know, have an appearance once in a while, maybe host an event, you know, just do something like that. I just don't see what else. Or you know what, if they're going to negotiate in a different country or maybe something big is being planned, maybe John Cena gets involved with that for good PR. But that's what's going on with John Cena. So they are working out a path for John Cena to continue working with WWE. Now, I know a lot of you don't pay attention to this, but, you know, me, I like to cover all aspects of wrestling news. And this happened earlier today. And we did recently have some fun with it because, you know, Cappuccino Jones, the ID champion, like I just look around and I'm like, does he defend this? Like he's the champion like for a long time. And like, does he defend it? Like what actually happens? And earlier today, literally tonight, he faced someone by the name of Starboy Charlie, and Starboy Charlie actually beat him. So now Charlie is the ID champion, and he's been offered a deal as well. So congrats to Starboy Charlie. I know some of you are going to be like, I never thought that we would almost open up with Starboy Charlie, but I wanted to mention it, get it out of the way, and we get into other stuff. Yeah, some of the names. I think my favorite NXT name right now is Eli Knight. I mean, you know that name is not making it to the main roster. It's even funnier because Eli Knight is a brother from another mother. I mean, you just look at him and you look at LA Knight. I don't need to say anything else, but that's just an amazing name to have in NXT. And, Eli Knight, you can't get any better than that. So later on, we'll have some fun. WWE put out, after what we saw with Randy Orton on SmackDown Friday, and a lot of you out there, much love to you, agreed with what I said last night. Randy Orton may need to give an RKO to Brandy Rhodes. Randy Orton may need to do something to Brandy to just turn this to the next level. We don't, unfortunately, have Dusty Rhodes anymore. Cowboy Bob Orton making a cameo. I love Bob Orton. He was one of my favorites back, in the mid-'80s during the beginnings of WrestleMania with Roddy Piper and everything else. But Cowboy Bob Orton these days, do I really care? We still talk about, the issues he had with his blood and hepatitis, many years ago. That's what everybody still thinks about with Cowboy Bob Orton. You don't have anybody in the Rhodes family to offset Bob Orton, other than maybe Brandy Rhodes, and I think maybe Randy Orton needs. Randy, RKO's Brandy. Randy and Brandy. I think we need that. But here's even funnier. WWE put out a list today. The top 20 most sadistic moments of Randy Orton. Oh, wait till you hear what's number one. It is fucking funny. I mean, just when you think that WWE is kind of like not trying to insult our intelligence anymore, they're insulting our wallets. When you think they're not insulting our intelligence anymore, they put out a list like this. Wait till you hear what number one is. It's fucking funny. I'll give you a hint. We just shit on it on a history show Saturday. We just shit all over it. So, plus, oh my God, I should open with this. I think this is worthy of opening up with. On Wednesday Night Dynamite, I was telling you about a couple of cash grabs that WWE is doing at WrestleMania. With all due respect to my fellow media people, podcasters and everything, you can put your catchy clickbait fucking thumbnails talking about WWE lowering WrestleMania ticket price. They do that fucking shit every year. It's part of business. You put out a high amount first to see how many suckers you could get to snatch them all up. And as you get a little closer, you start dropping the price a little bit. Then you realize you got a lot of people out there a little bit too hard up for their cash. Okay, we got to kind of make it a little more attractive. We got to get a little bit more. That's business. That's business. These people WrestleMania, yeah, you gave in, you lost WWE, you have to lose price. You don't know nothing about business. No wonder why you podcast full time, because you couldn't handle it in the real world. But as everybody else is celebrating that WWE is forced to lower their WrestleMania prices, oh boy, are they sticking this sausage up people's asses with everything else. Did you hear about the Cody Rhodes bus tour? The Cody Rhodes bus tour. I call it the Cody cash grab, because this is not just about WWE just trying to milk people out of control. The people that are involved with these, Cody Rhodes, you listen, you don't see Cody Rhodes sitting around having a Coke, a Don Tony Coke. You don't see him having like a regular Seagram seltzer. No, he's got to drink expensive Wheatley vodka. His fingers have to be perfectly manicured to the point that if you look at them closely, they're pink. They're pig pink. I never saw a man that has, his nails, the actual color underneath is the color of a pig, pink. It's not even like nail polish. This is a guy that's very classy, very educated, number one guy in the WWE company. He is the perfect ambassador for that company. That doesn't mean that motherfucker is for the people. Dusty Rhodes was fixing toilets, and Cody Rhodes pees in 24-karat toilets. Cody Rhodes is the complete opposite of Dusty Rhodes. So on Wednesday Night Dynamite, we were talking about the Cody Rhodes bus package that was being worked on. And I had someone do a little digging for me. And what we found out early on was originally WWE was planning a deal where the bus, like you for a limited number of people, because there's not many seats on the bus, obviously. You get a limited number of people, and they get the opportunity to walk onto the bus, and then Cody Rhodes does a little bit of a quick Q&A, shows a little bit behind the scenes at WrestleMania, setting everything up. I don't know if you got a photo opportunity or an autograph or anything like that, but the early idea was, you know, you go see the bus up close and personal, you go inside the bus, you meet Cody Rhodes, you know, this and that, and the price was somewhere around $2,000 to $3,000. Okay, and that was the package we told you with Liv Morgan also at Madison Square Garden next week. You want to meet Liv Morgan next week in Madison Square Garden, there's another package for $2,000 as well. Well, On Location never revealed the specifics about the Cody Rhodes bus package. Serious inquiries only. So somebody sent an inquiry in, I'm sure a lot of people did, and if someone finally got a response, and I got to share this with you. This is the official response about the Cody Rhodes bus tour. Now, I will zoom in, but WWE obviously tweaked the bus tour package. They probably got so many inquiries of people that wanted to be part of it. They're like, you know what can we do to amp up the price a little bit more? And this is now the Cody Rhodes bus package. It is now a bus tour. It is limited to 12 people, and you will ride in the bus with Cody Rhodes as he drives and shows you 1 to 2 iconic Las Vegas landmarks, accompanied by a tour guide providing live commentary. And it will take place on a day Cody is not scheduled to wrestle. We know he is closing out night 1 of WrestleMania, so this means it's probably going to be night 2 of WrestleMania, or the day of WrestleMania, day 2, or the day before night 1. $10,000. $10,000 per person. You don't even get tickets for WrestleMania. $10,000 to sit on a bus with Cody Rhodes as they show you 1 or 2 landmarks in Las Vegas. I'm going to WrestleMania from a different state. I don't give a fuck about anywhere else in Las Vegas. I don't even care if you show me where all the prostitutes are. What the fuck do I care? I want to meet the wrestler. And then now turning it into an actual bus tour in Las Vegas. $10,000. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is for everyone out there that is so obsessed about WrestleMania ticket prices, understand, nothing is ever for free and nothing is ever truly discounted. This gets lowered, this gets raised. We can't make it here, we'll make it here. We can't do this, we'll do that. WWE, I've said this for about 4 months, and a lot of you have said it also, that WWE this year will break, revenue-wise, last year's record. And it's not even going to be close. It's going to be staggering. And it's going to be something you're going to have to sit with for at least 2 years, because next year in Saudi Arabia, the ticket prices don't matter. In fact, I can't wait for the people that said, I paid $25,000 for me and my family to go to WrestleMania in Vegas. And you're going to find out somebody in Saudi Arabia is going to be, I took my wife and then my kids to the WrestleMania. We paid $110 total. That's my Saudi Arabia impersonation. People are going to throw up when you hear some WrestleMania ticket prices next year under $100 because WWE's getting their money up front. You know, they'll make additional money other ways. It's going to be awesome. Next week, people are going to pay $2,000 to meet Liv Morgan. Next year at WrestleMania, they're going to have people paying $18 to meet Liv Morgan. And the funny thing is, for some reason, people still want some of us to think that Saudi Arabia is like a primitive country. That you land in Saudi Arabia and you see people living in huts and people rubbing rocks together so they can make fire, so they could cook, you know, over some type of like ragweed or something. You know, the average salary in Saudi Arabia is not too much different than the United States. And I can only speak for the United States because that's where I live. But when you hear about the WrestleMania ticket prices going down, understand that while that's happening, you can meet Danhausen for $480. And some people probably pay it. So, all right. What should we continue with? What should we talk about tonight? We have so much news to get into. Should we just get into Raw right off the bat? I think we should, right? Monday Night Raw, TD Garden, Boston, Massachusetts. Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, and I did take notes. Brock Lesnar, and I don't have too many thumbnails from tonight's Raw. I have a few, though. Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman head to the ring. This is now, 2 weeks in a row where Brock Lesnar opens the show. Okay, take the plane, show up, 5 o'clock. You'll open up Raw. You'll be done by 8:15, 8:30. And you could go back to your hotel, fly back home, and that's it. So Brock Lesnar opens up with Paul Heyman today. They're immediately greeted with Oba chants. And I'm still waiting for Goldberg to open his mouth. I want to see if Goldberg shows respect or if he pulls, I don't want to say this. He pulls kind of like a Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash was not trying to be cruel to Javon Evans, but, that motherfucker, when he said, he needs to be more urban, the minute he said it, he realized he fucked up. And we predicted that same week, we said, you watch for the next couple of weeks the damage control. Because Kevin Nash is a Hall of Famer. Kevin Nash is an amazing entertainer. Kevin Nash is a successful businessman. He is he entertained me for years and years and years. The guy is very, very smart, but he's not very street smart. And when that happened, immediately he's trying to give us lessons about black culture and talking about, Tom this or whatever. And then it's about him. It was all about him defending himself. And instead of just saying, look, man, I just felt that he was being too vanilla. He just didn't have the balls to go all the way through and say, listen, I want Javon Evans to succeed. I just feel like he's too happy-go-lucky. If anybody remembers early on, I said Javon Evans reminds me of Matt Riddle a little bit. Very, very happy-go-lucky, somewhat ignorant, naive, too happy, this and that, but they went the urban route. Does Goldberg mock Obafemi? Does he take a shot or does he show respect? Because Obafemi's done nothing to garner disrespect. Crowd is into that guy, and technically that guy's not even signed to a brand as of yet. So they're chanting Oba. Paul Heyman warns the crowd that they're pissing off Brock Lesnar. After Brock Lesnar laid out 20 masked men last week, and unfortunately they say that, Brock Lesnar was distracted by Seth Rollins. And because of that distraction, he was attacked by an overhyped wannabe ruler. That's what Paul Heyman said. And Paul Heyman brings up when Brock Lesnar conquered the Undertaker's streak. Undertaker never got a rematch. And there's been posers who've wanted to avenge Brock Lesnar. Paul Heyman mentions Goldberg, Braun Strowman, Dean Ambrose, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, John Cena, and they all fallen to Brock Lesnar. Obafemi will just be like the rest, that Oba is already peaked, and he will lose at WrestleMania. Then all of a sudden the lights go out, Oba shows up, they have a stare down, and then Lesnar kicks Obafemi in the stomach, goes for an F5, but Oba slips out of it, clotheslines him out of the ring. And Brock Lesnar's looking shocked. Brock Lesnar don't need to prove how crazy he is. For the next couple of weeks, it's about building up Oba to feel like he is on Brock's level. Brock is not past his prime. Brock is not retiring at SummerSlam. This is about just making Oba. That is, I wouldn't call it passing the torch because some people have already labeled it as passing the torch. I don't think it's to that. But this is big, and this is going to be a match that I think is going to be much, much, much better than people think. You know, we got to wonder how many times Brock Lesnar takes Obafemi to Suplex City. And then you think about Oba as well. And listen, when he came down that rampway, you know, the week prior, and you saw in his eyes how, you know, emotionally affected he was because of this. That is a guy that's truly just taking it all in. And that is someone that you want to see face Brock Lesnar. You just don't want someone to go through the motions. I still am kind of annoyed how they handled Seth Rollins last week. I'm still annoyed at that because last week you had, you know, Paul Heyman. You had Seth Rollins. You know, remember FAFO. FAF5. You know, shouldn't the cops have been there last week? Shouldn't they have been there last week, technically? And I don't like the fact, and I know I'm nitpicking it, but I don't like the fact that Brock Lesnar let Seth Rollins get out of the ring last week. You put your hands on Paul Heyman. You attacked him. You brutalized him. And I give you a pass. That's a distraction. It's almost like if you have a piranha in a fish tank and you drop a piece of raw meat inside the fish tank. The piranha's not going to stand there and look this way and look that way and give the piece of meat a chance to get out of the ring. Brock Lesnar just stood there and looked at Seth Rollins and did nothing. And it's not his fault, obviously. That's creative because they want to put all the focus on Oba and Brock Lesnar. But I thought that was a calculated mistake last week. So we did see early on Dominic Mysterio. Dominic feels his match against Penta shouldn't be happening because he should still be champion. If it wasn't for Finn, he'd still be champion. And after he wins tonight, he will remain as king of the luchadors. Now, not to go too far ahead, but we did get Dominic Mysterio unsuccessfully defeating Penta. Did not defeat Penta to regain the championship. You need to remember that it was less than 2 weeks ago that Dominic Mysterio got his head split open. He got his head split open by, I almost said El Puerto Riqueño, El Hijo del Viqueño. And he still has stitches in his head. So this match tonight, you know, he is healed enough that he could work a little bit, but that match was going to be extremely short tonight. And even with the Finn Balor post-match antics, JD was the one to be the bump machine tonight. You know, everybody brings up Los Gringos Locos. You know, Eddie Guerrero, Art Bar, both of them, God rest their souls. Now you got Dominic and El Grande Americano. So tonight it wasn't, Los Gringos Locos. You had JD pretty much being the bump machine. We had the love machine in Art Bar. We had the bump machine in JD McDonough tonight. So we then get the tag match between the Usos and the Vision. And I'm sure a lot of you out there tonight saw, my sources tell me there's a title change coming on Raw tonight. No, it was a non-title. It was a match that if the Vision could win, they put themselves in position to get a title opportunity. And that's pretty much what happened. This was your typical Raw match tonight. You saw a little bit of forced friction. That sounds like, maybe something Vince McMahon has been alleged of doing in the past, but we had some forced friction between LA Knight and Jey Uso. Jey Uso tonight, really out of control. We get the tag match. It's a typical Raw match, non-title. Towards the latter part of the match, Logan Paul sends Jey Uso to the outside. Jimmy Uso goes after him, pulls out the brass knucks, and the next thing you know, LA Knight's music hits. LA Knight's music hits. He attacks Logan Paul. This leads to Jey Uso getting his hands on the brass knucks. So instead of the referee, and I understand why referee didn't call for disqualification because Logan Paul was the one to put hands on LA Knight, or first, not the opposite. But Jey Uso grabs the knucks, knocks out Austin Theory with them. Referee sees it, calls for the bell. Disqualification. So now you have Division in line for a tag team title shot. And that will go down next week. Later on in the show, Paul Heyman is with Adam Pearce in the back, and he says, next week, I want you to set up the match. The Usos defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against Division in a New York City street fight. And that's what's going down. Now, could Division get those titles? Absolutely. Should they get the titles only 2 weeks away? 3 weeks away from WrestleMania. Next week it'll be 2.5 weeks, almost 3. I don't know if that's a good idea. Why would you do a tag team title change less than 3 weeks from WrestleMania unless the Usos are going to be involved in a different capacity? My gut feeling is this. You may want to take the tag titles off of the Usos prior to WrestleMania, because if the Usos are going to get involved in Roman Reigns versus CM Punk at Mania, the last thing you want to do is have them involved WrestleMania weekend with a loss. Because I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks the Usos were going to come out of WrestleMania as the tag team champions. So if they take the titles off of them before WrestleMania, then the Usos don't come off as losers any part of WrestleMania weekend. Yeah, that means no match for the Usos at Mania, but that certainly means, who knows what the future of the Bloodline will be. Because don't forget what we saw tonight, and I had to take a screenshot of this. Oh my God, did I even put it in my computer? I think I have it here. Do I have it? I may not have it. Well, I'll tell you what it was. When we saw LA Knight in the back with the Usos, you could go look it up. When LA Knight was in the back with the Usos, and LA Knight is basically, being thanked by Jimmy for showing up and everything. And Jey Uso, not so much. Jey Uso, a little forced friction with LA Knight. And, Jay storms off a little bit. And Jimmy brings up, about don't talk like, Roman Reigns. Because what happened was, LA Knight's with the Usos in the back, and LA Knight is, talking to him. And Jey Uso was talking about how, they got, talking about someone getting got. And LA Knight says to Jay, you sound like Roman Reigns. And I'm kind of tired with people saying, you sound just like your cousin. You're Roman Reigns. This is like the third person that's done that. CM Punk has done it. Cody Rhodes has done it. LA Knight has done it. I even think Sami Zayn at one point had done it, or Kevin Owens definitely did it. So, Jay takes offense to that. And Jimmy tells LA Knight, basically more directed to CM Punk, don't talk about my family. And in the background is a big, giant WWE production truck with The Rock. And his head is right in the middle between Jimmy Uso and LA Knight. And right away, people are reading between the lines. Oh, my God. Do you remember how many production trucks was shown last year leading up to Mania? And they thought, this was strategically done, and this was strategically done. And, oh, my God, this is being done for a reason. No. They're just fucking with our minds. Just fucking with us. They're trolling us. I don't know what The Rock's role will be. Might be nothing, but, we'll see. But that was done tonight, and it sparked a lot of immediate conversation about it. So now we get the segment, as I said earlier, with Becky Lynch. She hits the ring. She talks about she took time off to spend it with the people that she loves. She came back, and she could have gone for the world title. No, not really, because, we had Chamber and Royal Rumble, but she puts over the IC title, and she puts over how she made the title, and it pisses her off that she sees AJ Lee walking around with it. But why did she come back now? Because of her daughter. She is home, and she sees her daughter skipping around the house, singing AJ Lee's music. And, they ain't having that. And Becky Lynch, to me, with the quote of the night, AJ Lee mastered the Divas division, and Becky Lynch murdered the Divas division. And she's going to do it again to AJ Lee. And AJ Lee comes out, no skipping this time, which was good. And they set up the match for WrestleMania. AJ Lee tells Becky Lynch, you always fight dirty because every time we're in this ring, I beat you. And I'm going to show you at WrestleMania why I'm your daughter's favorite wrestler. And that pisses off Becky even more. So now the match is official. Becky Lynch will challenge AJ Lee for the Women's Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. Becky claims that this was all a setup because WrestleMania is her domain. And as this segment closes out, Becky Lynch reminds AJ Lee about WrestleMania 11. AJ, what happened at WrestleMania 11? The night after, you sent in your resignation. You won't have to worry about this time around because I'm going to end your career. And that's how we lead up the match. No stipulation as of yet, just like with Liv Morgan and Stephanie McMahon. I don't know if we're going to get any type of added stipulation. I hope that they do it with Liv and Stephanie McMahon. There's got to be a stipulation you should add to it. Not just do a street fight because that's lazy, but you have that kind of a brawl tonight. You want to just destroy each other. It's going to be kind of dopey when you start seeing a lot of wrestling moves to open it up. You know, you want to see brawl. You want to see real physicality. You don't want, a gimmicky regular wrestling match. So hopefully they add a little bit of a stipulation. So then we see backstage the very urban Javon Evans. He is with what is he with? He had Grayson Waller. He had the match with Grayson Waller. It wasn't backstage. It was Javon Evans defeating Grayson Waller. I don't know if they're trying to tease a split with Kofi and Grayson Waller. I thought the verbiage after Grayson Waller lost was kind of stupid. You hear Kofi saying to Grayson Waller, I would have liked you to win tonight. I would have liked you to win tonight. It was just like, it was like, say something, it was just, but this match was off the hook. We haven't seen Grayson Waller have too many televised matches, but there was one point where Javon Evans did a torpedo to the outside and he overshot Grayson Waller. And if you look at it closely, he almost landed on his head. But Javon Evans had the wherewithal to immediately bolt back in that ring to show everyone that he was okay. And this match, it was funny when I heard Corey Graves say, I never seen that before, and I saw the replay, Javon Evans hit a top rope hurricanrana. And when I heard Corey Graves say it before they did the replay, and then I saw that, I'm like, Corey, you never saw Ray do that? But then I realized it was the OG cutter from the top rope. He literally did the LA Knight, when you hop on the middle rope to the top rope and then hits the OG cutter. Impressive, man. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do with Javon Evans at WrestleMania, but my God, the guy is just on fire. And, do they do like a multi-man match? You almost feel like they have to. They're giving him a lot of a TV time right now. You feel like something's got to happen at WrestleMania. And speaking of TV time, you think of Penta. Penta right now is the Intercontinental Champion. We have not seen Gunther at all. We talked last week about the rumor that Gunther might face Rey Mysterio. Well, that was the planned match, but then Rey got injured, so the match is off. I don't know how close Rey is to recovery, but I absolutely have no interest in seeing Gunther versus Rey Mysterio. I still think we may get Gunther versus Penta. I think that may be the match. The fact that they're still having Dragon Lee interacting with Penta as much as they are, Gunther has to play a part of this. He pulled the mask off for Dragon Lee a couple of weeks ago and started fucking chaos online. It was insane, the amount of chaos. I mean, people were there were people in the podcasting world that were trying to murder each other because of how outrageous that was. Then I see today reports that Gunther turning babyface is not out of the question. I'm like, what are you talking about? He literally just retired John Cena. He retired AJ Styles. You are not turning Gunther babyface anytime soon. When Dragon Lee had that backstage segment today with Penta and sort of I Show Speed, Dragon Lee wants a match again with Penta. Didn't they just have a match? Wasn't it an open challenge? So once again, if Penta retains, Dragon Lee wants another shot. That might be the way to bring Gunther back. Gunther may show up and maybe we'll get a twofer. Maybe Gunther could somehow pull both their masks off. That would be something. But I don't think it's out of the question, Gunther versus Penta. First of all, you know why I don't think it can be Ray, even if Ray is able to return? It's not even on TV. He's on AAA. Like, you're 3 weeks away from Mania. You're going to suddenly bring Gunther back and suddenly bring Ray back and suddenly, even if you do something where Gunther fucks with Dragon Lee again and then Ray comes out, and starts, he makes the save and Gunther goes out of Dodge. No, you want Gunther to challenge him for a title. I think Gunther versus Penta for the IC title is awesome because I think it'll be a split prediction. I think a lot of people will predict Gunther winning the title. And I think there'll be a decent number of people predicting that Penta will retain. I love the matches where you can't clearly predict the winner. Sometimes it's clear as crystal, but you just want to see how you get to that point. That's a lot of Roman Reigns' entire run. As the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, how many times during Roman Reigns' historic run did you truly say to yourself, I think he's going to lose it this weekend? I think some people thought that when Sami Zayn fought him in Canada. I think some people thought that when Drew McIntyre fought him in England, in the United Kingdom, or Scotland, whatever it was. I really don't see anywhere else. We didn't think he was going to lose to Kevin Owens. We didn't think he was going to lose to Jay. We didn't think he was going to lose to a lot of people. Roman Reigns' historic run, almost in all of it, we never felt the title was in jeopardy. So we were just more, and the reason why we still enjoyed it was not only because how good the storyline was with the Bloodline, but because the matches were solid. So you pretty much could predict the outcome. You just didn't know how you were going to get to that. And we're not talking about tribal combat. I don't even think Drew McIntyre, Benjamin says Drew McIntyre, I don't think that, even in the United Kingdom, and I remember that day, September 3rd, 2022, because that's the day I got married. I literally was waiting for my limo to go to my wedding, and I'm watching Clash at the Castle on my TV. For real. I watched Gunther kicking ass, and I'm like, oh, my limo's here. time to get married. But I think people thought, how could you have Drew lose in his home turf? But, we look back on it, and obviously all the decisions they made with Roman Reigns was the right one. I think probably the only time that I truly thought his title was history was the first WrestleMania match with Cody. I never in a million years ever thought we would have to go another year. When that rubber chicken, when this thing hit the ring with Cody, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel right now. I honestly never thought we would go another year, but we did. He had to finish the story. You don't do Dusty. You don't do Dusty documentaries. You don't do Cody documentaries bringing up Dusty. You don't make the entire young wrestling world learn about Dusty and chasing the gold, because Dusty Rhodes, one of the, not worst, but one of the most lackluster NWA world champions in history. And some people get angry when I say that, but they don't understand. Dusty Rhodes, the money was made chasing the title, not winning the title. Dusty Rhodes had the championship, I think, 3 times, and his total reign combined was like 200 days. Dusty Rhodes, once you had the title, you're like, now what? And then you realize the money was made chasing the title, finishing the story. We did it. All the fans run in the ring crying, Dusty Rhodes. We did it. 2 weeks later, he lost it. That's because that's how it was. You don't educate an entire new generation about Dusty and chasing and Cody doing it for his father and doing it for the title that his father truly should have won, which is, I'm sorry, people rewrite history. I was a very, very, very young wrestling fan in 1979. And I was 2 years late to the game with superstar Billy Graham and Dusty Rhodes. But I know for a fucking fact, Dusty Rhodes was never intended to become WWF champion at the time because Dusty Rhodes was coming in for a short spurt. He wasn't signed to any long-term deal in the WWF. Dusty Rhodes, it was never, ever envisioned him being world champion at that time. It was never discussed. It was never in the cards. You know, some people say, well, if Hulkamania never came around, maybe Dusty would have been in that role. And that's possible. Problem is when you think of Florida Championship Wrestling, you think of everything else that Dusty was involved in. What was the guarantee that Dusty was going to be convinced to come to New York and work for the WWF for a bunch of years? You know, when he did show up, they put polka dots on him. And, you know, he was more of just the common man gimmick. But the thing is, the bottom line is you don't educate an entirely new generation about Dusty and the love for Dusty and intertwining Cody with it and then saying 18 months in or 20 months in, The Rock's going to show up. He's going to sabotage everything. The Rock is just unhinged, and Ari Emanuel's going to let The Rock do whatever he wants, and he wants to win the title, and then he's going to retire because he's got to go film the MMA movie night, and then we'll do a tournament. Yeah, okay. Just, I don't want to throw shade on AEW. That's not even something AEW would have done. That's not even something with, marijuana championship wrestling where everybody that writes is high. Like, dude, why don't we do this? Dude, I have a perfect idea, dude. What if we have sheep in the ring? Oh, my God, dude. I don't even think a promotion like that would do something like that. So, anyway, reeling us back in. We get Paul Heyman in the ring after the match is confirmed for next week in New York City. He's in the ring and he's all alone. No Bronson Reed. He ain't coming back anytime soon. No Braun Breaker. He's not coming back anytime soon. You're right. Austin Theory, Logan Paul, after what happened earlier, he addresses his stalker, Seth freaking Rollins. Paul Heyman has a revelation. He's a man. He's a man. And he's a man, just like Seth Rollins. They're men who have been pushed too far. The WWE is not big enough for both of us. Kind of sounds like Ric Flair in Monday Night Raw in 1993 to Kurt Hennig. He's not teasing a match because he knows he'll get killed from Seth Rollins, but he says, WWE's not big enough for both of them. So, Seth, why don't you just come down and put me out of my misery? And he's just standing in the ring, kind of like, go ahead, take your shot. Just end it. And Seth Rollins shows up through the crowd, standing on the announcer's table, pulls the mask off. And we will talk about Braun Breaker. There's a reason why I made that thumbnail, because I'm convinced that this is how this is going down. You do not keep masked men around like props. But at this point, we know the revelation. Seth Rollins already taken a mask off. There's no need to have masked people. They're not helping him. They're not being revealed as fucking NXT stars getting moved to the main roster. They're not going to be revealed as Seth Rollins' new faction. They're props. And I think what is going to happen is Seth Rollins is going to be in the ring. He is going to be facing Paul Heyman or somebody on the rampway. And one of the masked men is going to pull a fucking mask off. And it's going to be revealed to be Roman Reigns. Be Braun Breaker. If you see the thumbnail for tonight. I think that's exactly how it's going down. PW Insider reported today that Braun Breaker is at the Performance Center and they're checking him out to make sure that he can return for WrestleMania. And this is something that we've talked about for numerous weeks, that if Braun Breaker is able to work WrestleMania, that tells you his hernia tear was nowhere near the severity that it was. Wrestling exaggerates. Andre the Giant was 800 pounds when he was body slammed. Everything's exaggerated, and the thing is, when Braun had that injury, it's torn off the bone. John Cena would have injuries and people would tease, he may not come back from this one. We've had people get these injuries, and then you realize in wrestling, everything's exaggerated. You break this, it's actually, shattered. Something's broke, little fracture, broken. Something's broken, shattered. Something's shattered, completely disjointed. So we're going to learn that Braun Breaker's tear was minor. And, then you remember some of the people who were creative early on, he had pain already. And then it became a full tear afterwards. If he had pain in that area, it's not like, I think it's a little itty bitty tear, and they don't check it out. And then he decides, let me pick up a very heavy table and just press, no. I think he pulled it and had a slight tear. And, slight tear can be healed in 2 months. When you have a serious tear, doesn't matter what kind of physical conditioning. You could be in my condition. You could be in the condition of Ravishing Rick Rude. If you have a complete tear of your hernia, it doesn't matter what kind of physical condition. The only thing that would change is if I keep bending over to pick up like cases of soda to drink, or if I keep picking up big bags of groceries so I could eat. Yeah, my hernia is not going to get better. But it doesn't matter if you're human specimen or fat slob. The muscle has to heal on its own. You can't speed it up. You can't, it's just not the case. So the fact that Braun is at the Performance Center this week tells you this injury was nowhere near as severe as it originally was. And that's awesome. That is awesome because there's only one person that should face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. And as I said yesterday, I said last week as well, if Seth Rollins was not able to go at WrestleMania, why did you bring him back now? What's the purpose? Now you see people out there that, Seth Rollins might fight fucking Tom Brady. Why? Because of Good Morning Football? Why? Because of Are you kidding me? Tom Brady versus Seth Rollins. What are you going to do? What are you possibly going to do? Have Seth lose? Are you kidding me? Have Seth win? For what? Like Tom Brady, there's no evidence that he's been working. This is not Bad Bunny. This is a bad dream. There ain't no way you're having Seth Rollins. I saw people today, Seth may face Tom Brady. Yeah, okay. Just let that sink in and think about that for a minute. It's just, these are people that are just seeing things happen. And I might as well get that little news tidbit out of the way right now. We had that flag. I'll talk about the flag football a little bit later. But anyway, the bottom line is that Tom Brady's team in flag football got his ass kicked. But the thing is, Logan Paul's been throwing a lot of shade towards Tom Brady. Did a mock apology over the weekend too. But Seth Rollins also took some shots at Tom Brady. Understand this. Tom Brady is a wrestling fan. Understand this. WWE's in good graces with Tom Brady. This is all about the entertainment side of sports. That's something you got to realize. This is not like Tom Brady just going rogue and just crapping on wrestling and not you think ESPN likes that? ESPN, shut the fuck up. We're trying to get subscribers. What the fuck you doing? Tom Brady that's not what it's about. But at the same time, though, you're not going to have Tom Brady suddenly enter the wrestling. You want to do a move? Fine. You want to hit a spot on Logan Paul? Fine. That's why I think if Logan Paul and Austin Theory win the tag titles next week, then I could see Tom Brady having a little interaction with Logan Paul at WrestleMania. That's different because now we don't have to see the Usos take on the Vision at Mania. I didn't want to see something where possibly Tom Brady's in the corner of the Usos for what? Like the Usos are supposed to be on the reg right now. Jay's pissed. Jay is angry. And you're not going to suddenly have feel-good moments where I don't think Jay Uso is going to run it back anytime between now and WrestleMania. All those people that are buying tickets in the rampway, oh yeah, he's going to yeet. I'm going to get yeeted tonight. Nah. I don't think that's happening anytime between now and Mania. It's not him, Oos. It's not him, Oos. So Paul Heyman, he wants Seth to come down. And then to me, this was, my God, like if I had a road rage incident, I would want Paul Heyman in my car to roll the window down and say, Paul, just curse out that motherfucker. I don't care if it's a woman. I don't care if it's a guy. I don't care if the guy's Italian. I don't care if he's Polish. I don't care if he's Puerto Rican, black, Chinese. I don't care if he's a cop. I don't care what it is. Paul, just do your thing. Paul Heyman let loose on Seth Rollins tonight verbally. This was the verbal assault of arguably the decade. Just the way it came out, it was so believable that if I'm Seth Rollins, I would truly want to punch Paul Heyman in the mouth for what he said. What happens is Rollins shows up on the announcer's table. He takes the mask off, and the crowd goes nuts. And Paul Heyman realizes that he might be behind him. So Paul Heyman turns around, and Paul Heyman, for a split second, it makes us think like, okay, shit's about to happen. He's going to get his ass kicked. At that particular moment, I said to myself, could Braun Breaker return? Could we possibly see a bunch of masked men and Seth hit the ring? Paul Heyman exits. One of the masked men is behind Seth Rollins, pulls the mask off. It's Braun Breaker, lays out Seth Rollins. Then you got 3 weeks to build the match. Nah, that may happen next week instead. No, what ends up happening is Seth Rollins is staring at Paul Heyman, and Paul has this smirk on his face, and he has 4 Boston cops. Now we come to the realization that there's an order of protection against Seth Rollins. So, as the cops are, Seth Rollins realized it was a setup. He broke the order of protection, the restraining order. So now Seth realizes, okay, he's in trouble. So he steps down from the announcer's table. He's like, I'm not going to give you guys a hard time. The cops are basically escorting Seth Rollins out of the ringside area to the back. Seth Rollins is going to the back. Paul Heyman is reminding us about his family. He didn't mention the fact that they were Jewish lawyers, but his family are snitches. They don't fight. They file restraining orders. And he says, you broke your restraining order. You're going to jail. And then he just goes on this tirade that it was just amazing. And again, a huge goddamn fuck you to Netflix. I wanted to rewind that, type it word for word, rewind it again, rewind it again, rewind it again. Couldn't rewind it once. But Paul Heyman is talking about, you're going to go to jail. You're going to become a felon, and then your wife is going to leave you. Then he talks about something with Becky Lynch and half the men's roster. And then he says, your wife's going to leave you, and Child Protective Service is going to pick up your daughter, and then they're going to take your daughter, and then I'm going to adopt your daughter. I mean, he just went off on Seth Rollins that truly, even if it was acting, you would just want to punch Paul Heyman in the mouth. And Seth Rollins just turns around and bolts to the ring and does give a nice shot to Paul Heyman. I didn't like the forearm because that literally deserved a punch right in the face. But he gave him a little bit of a forearm, and Paul goes down, and then Seth Rollins gets arrested. Now, Seth Rollins won't remain in jail for 3 weeks. We don't have to worry about that. I think we may even see something next week, with Braun Breaker. You almost feel like it has to happen. And if you're going to do it, you do it in the world's most famous arena. You do it in the Garden. And I think Seth will return next week. We'll see. I mean, I don't know if Paul Heyman could get the restraining order dropped, but if Braun Breaker faces Seth Rollins at WrestleMania and Paul Heyman is going to be in Braun Breaker's corner, then that restraining order needs to be lifted. And maybe when Braun leaves Seth Rollins laying, maybe Paul Heyman stands over him and says, I lifted the restraining order. And then they set up the match for Mania. But that segment, Paul Heyman just brutalized Seth Rollins tonight. I just thought it was freaking awesome, man. So now we get the Kabuki Warriors losing to Bayley and Lara Vicaria. Michael Cole teasing a little bit that maybe Bayley is a little bit of a weak link. Kyrie's maybe a little bit of a weak link. Trying to tease like maybe there's some issues there. we do see a spot later on in the match where Bayley is brawling with Asuka outside the rampway. And she hits a Bayley to Bayley on Asuka into the announcer's table. And as Asuka is halfway laid out on the announcer's table, her upper body is, Bayley climbs the padding area next to the announcer's table and attempts an elbow. No water in the pool. Asuka gets out of dodge. Bayley goes right through the table. So now Bayley's written off for the rest of the match. Asuka is around the ringside area with Kyrie, and Lyra, hits them both with kicks. So they both fall to the floor. Lyra picks up Kyrie Sane, brings her back in the ring, hits Nightwing, gets the victory. Jackie Redmond immediately interviews Bayley and Lyra. Any pressure going into WrestleMania, and Bayley's cutting the promo, celebrating their victory, and she issues the challenge for Nia Jax and Lash Legend for next week in Madison Square Garden, which was greeted with insane boos, and which was expected because the Bostonians wanted the match tonight. Obviously, Nia and Lash aren't there, so it couldn't happen. But when Bayley says, we want to challenge you for next week, and they're all booing, rightfully so. But apparently that match is set. So next week, Nia Jax and Lash Legend will defend the women's tag team titles against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. And then later on, we are realizing how much Io Sky misses Rhea Ripley. You see, it's like what it reminds me of? It's like a dog that is extremely attached to its master. And the master goes on vacation for 2-3 weeks, a month, goes on a month-long cruise, and the dog treated very well, but the dog is put in a kennel. And it doesn't matter who the dog is around. The dog is just devastated that his or her master is not there. And he just wandering around. Just is he ever going to come back home? That's what Io is right now. And they're doing nothing with her. It almost feels like they're teasing Io versus Kyrie versus Asuka at WrestleMania. Because after all this goes down, you get another backstage segment where Asuka is berating Kyrie. And as I'm watching this, I'm saying to myself, they better not do the split because Kyrie will be history. Because WWE has never shown any evidence that they would put the Jets behind Kyrie as a singles wrestler. So they're teasing that Kyrie is once again being berated by Asuka. And Io just happens to be there. You sure do not deserve this. And Kyrie's looking at her with the sad eyes and everything. And, headphone alert, everybody. You've been warned. Headphone alert. So Io is very soft-spoken. And she's consoling Kyrie. And Kyrie's looking at her Kyrie! Kyrie goes off. And Io is standing there dejected. And no Rhea at her side. So that's where we are with Io Sky right now. I could only think that maybe we end up with a 3-way at Mania with those three. And I'm not even sure that'll happen. Because the Kabuki Warriors, even if they do a gauntlet match at Mania, there's no justification for them to be involved in the gauntlet for the tag titles. As I warned you on Wednesday, I told you the Bellas were about to return. I didn't think it was going to happen Friday, but it did. So, just to finish up Raw. Next week, we have Brock Lesnar once again. Next week, we have Roman Reigns again. I think the following week, Reigns is not on. So that's why I'm a little concerned about the no-touch rule. That could very well happen. Next week, we get the women's tag team title match. And next week, we get Io versus Raquel, because I should have added this too. After Io tries to console Kyrie, and headphone alert, because a lot of people seem to like it, even though it's very freaking annoying. I should have that as a ringtone. But just as Io is consoling Kyrie and Asuka, Raquel shows up. And I know Raquel's a big woman. and she's a tall woman. But my God, I've seen her stand next to EO before, but maybe because they weren't in the same picture, like it wasn't gradually, like she just popped up and I was like, she looked like Andre the Giant standing next to like Vince McMahon. She looked 5 times bigger than Io Sky. And I know Io is a short woman and Raquel is tall. But my God, tonight, I don't know unless she was wearing like 4-inch heels. She showed up and she's throwing shade at Io Sky. And now we know we have the match next week. So, that's pretty much where we're at here. All right. Random stuff. We saw ISO Speed a couple of times. Expect him at Mania. You have 180 million followers, whatever it is. You're figuring out a way to use that guy. He's with Penta and he wants to learn the Penta strut. He does that. Dragon Lee shows up, wishes Penta good luck against Dom, wants a match if Penta retains. And then later on, ISO Speed is cursed by Danhausen. You are cursed. And ISO like, what? Because, Danhausen's got more business proposals. He wants to do business with ISO Speed. He's not interested. So Danhausen curses ISO Speed. Listen, crowd loves it. I don't know if they've come out shirts with it yet, but when they do, you're going to see mounds of those shirts in the crowd. I'm waiting for the little kids to start wearing the face paint. You're going to have little kids doing Danhausen's face paint. I think you're going to even see some kids going in Halloween as Danhausen. You see quickly, even though we never, like most of us felt Danhausen was too indie-ish, for WWE standards, but now you realize why he fits. You probably could count how many matches he has in a year on your 2 hands, maybe even 1 hand. He's not going to have many matches. And I expect it to be comedy gimmick matches. Maybe he teams up with someone down the line. We had an NXT Origins segment featuring Tiffany Stratton, showing the early days when she was in NXT. Obviously, there's news, and it's in the synopsis too. For those that don't know, NXT is now on YouTube. I consider it more as a placeholder than anything else. The deal with Peacock is over, so no more NXT Premium Live events on Peacock. Right now, all the library for every NXT event, and I don't know about recent shows because I think with CW, there's got to be a little bit of, they have to have a little bit of trying to think would be the right word. Recent weeks, I think they have first dibs on that. But as far as NXT's older library, all the premium live events, all the old TV episodes, everything is on YouTube. And as I said even yesterday, WWE has no contract with YouTube. As quickly as WWE uploaded all of them, they could take them down in a week. So right now, because WWE does not have a TV deal, for the premium live events and the archive, seniority, I think was kind of the word I was going for earlier. They put it on YouTube. When in doubt, put it on YouTube. No library, but no one wants to host Nitro stuff. No problem, put it on YouTube. They're making crazy amounts of ad revenue. And not only that, think about the algorithm. You watch a couple of NXT events. I've mentioned this yesterday. You go to sleep and you let YouTube run all night long. The algorithm, if you're watching NXT events, the algorithm will keep throwing NXT shit on your screen. You'll wake up with NXT still playing on your TV. I didn't request this. The algorithm will just keep recommending NXT, or it'll automatically play that. So right now, NXT Stand and Deliver is happening on YouTube. And sure, they're not getting, and I wouldn't even say pay-per-view revenue because that's not even the case. Like I saw people making fun of WWE saying, oh, NXT, now it's regulated to YouTube. What do you want them to do? Charge $39.99? Like, what's the other alternative? The other alternative, think about this. The other alternative is a TV deal, a streaming deal, with a platform where you may have to buy another subscription. See, Peacock, I've brought this up before. Peacock you get for free. If you're an Instacart Plus member, you get Peacock for nothing. You get commercials, but you get it for nothing. But the people that are making fun that NXT's on YouTube, what do you want them to do? Sign a deal with Amazon, where now you have to buy Prime membership in order to watch it? Like, enjoy the fact that it's free. Enjoy the fact that it's on YouTube. WWE is not going to lose much money on this. But that's a great thing. And obviously they want to get attention on it. So we saw the segment with Tiffany Stratton tonight. Dominic Mysterio taking on Penta. This was kind of funny, if anybody noticed it. Dom shows up for his match, and he's with Liv. Before they could even go down the rampway, here's Stephanie Vicaire. Awesome brawl between Liv and Stephanie Vicaire. Liv knows how to scream. Stephanie Vicaire, a little bit more silent but violent. But they are brawling on the rampway, in the back, around Gorilla, and just Stephanie Vicaire bumping across chairs. And this was tremendous. And it was funny because as you're watching it, pay attention to some of the cameras around. So when you saw LA Knight with that guy, I say nicely, remember last week? I showed everybody in Discord after the show the screenshots of the host that interviewed LA Knight. When LA Knight says, I had no idea no real cameras were around, you liar. You liar. They're literally giant spotlights and fucking cameras. What do you think they're doing? Like walking around with iPhones? Like, oh, Unreal. Yeah. What do you think? They have a sticker that says Unreal? No, they got these giant cameras, 2 of them in your face, 15 feet away. When Triple H is making you look like a clown, you got to look over there and like, why are all these cameras in my face? I had no idea Unreal cameras were around. Yeah, sure. I had no idea I had balls. It's just ridiculous. But you look and you see the cameras, they're filming this and that. Great spot. But what was funnier was after we get this segment, now Dom has to have his match against Penta. And if you look closely, he's walking down the rampway with JD McDonough. You would have never thought that moments earlier, his girlfriend was just having an insane brawl with Stephanie Vicaire. He's walking down the rampway like nothing ever happened. He did, I think, get hit too with Stephanie Vicaire. But before the match could start, Dom attacks Penta. And this was one-sided for quite the most of the beginning of the match. And again, you have to protect Dom still. Staples, then stitches don't heal in 2 weeks. All right. He still has, the injury to his head. But WrestleMania is very important. And, they needed to do something that would lead to Finn Balor, coming out. And as we had the match with Penta and Dom, this was very fast match. Maybe like even like a watered down Raw match. This was not one of those, this is awesome matches. This was more of a, all right, we're doing this to set up something else. Finn Balor's music hits. JD McDonough's on the rampway. Next thing you know, Finn and JD are brawling. Dominic is distracted. Fruit roll up. Penta defeats Dom. Right after the match is over, Penta did his best impersonation of Danhausen. He just disappeared. Finn is in the ring. You get an early 2-on-1 attack, but Finn gets the upper hand. Dominic bails, runs into the crowd, and then Finn hits the double kick to JD McDonough into the corner. It's the coup de grace. And, look, we've known for a while that JD McDonough and Finn Balor absolutely want to have a match together. And that could very well happen next week. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens next week. But, as Dom is in the crowd and Finn finishes hitting the coup de grace on JD, he looks at Dom and he says, me and you. It doesn't point to the WrestleMania sign yet, but me and you. We're doing, and Dom looks very, very concerned. We do not need the Demon. There is no reason to bring the Demon right now. This should be straight up Finn Balor, and Dominic Mysterio. Finn Balor, JD McDonough first. There's no reason to go gimmicky with this. You don't need extravagant entrances. You just want two guys that were former friends and family that are just brawling with each other. We don't need Demon right now. You want to do that later on? Fine. But right now, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, straight up one-on-one. So we finally get the end of the show with CM Punk, Roman Reigns, the Young Boy, and the Usos. CM Punk is in the back, approaching Gorilla, and Jimmy Uso's there. Jimmy Uso warns CM Punk. He says, my brother's on the warpath. My fingers were hurting. I was typing as fast as I could during this segment. Tried to get as much detail as I could. CM Punk comes out there, and I think it would be nice if I put this there. Yeah. CM Punk comes out. He immediately mentions Jimmy Uso's warning. You know, Jimmy warned him, my brother's on the warpath tonight. Be careful what you say. So CM Punk asks Boston, should I watch what I say tonight? And Boston's like, no. So CM Punk's like, this proves that Roman Reigns can't do anything without his cousins. And now CM Punk realizes his cousins can't do anything without Roman Reigns. In fact, no one in that family can do anything for themselves. No one in that family could be world heavyweight champion, and he's touching the belt. Kind of a mixed reaction by the fans when he said that. And then he mentions what Roman Reigns said last week about how Roman was going to have his whole family come after him. And CM Punk says, do you know how many Samoans came after me since then? 0, nada, goose egg, none. So then CM Punk says, pardon my language, sorry to the kids out there, but this is the shit-talking business. We say what we say and we do what we do to set up to sell a match. He's a shit-talker. And then he says to Boston, but I'm tired of talking. Sticks and stones, blah, 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 blah. But Roman Reigns did say something last week that pissed him off. Roman called him old. And CM Punk says it's not what was said, it's who said it. He says, my young boy doesn't disrespect me and call me old. He says, Boston, am I old? And as I'm watching this, I'm like, yeah, it is kind of a mixed reaction. I mean, he is older, but he says, you know, I am old. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm damn proud of it. He says, am I ashamed of it? Hell no. He says, if I wasn't proud of being old, I'd be covering up my grays with Just for Men like Roman Reigns does. And that is true. That is very true. Roman Reigns, a lot of Just for Men, especially on the in fact, the Usos. Jay has done it. A lot of people do it. I do it a little bit. I don't deny it. He quotes Terry Funk that he's middle-aged and crazy. Then he starts comparing a lot of old school athletes. He says that his age right now, he was the same age as Nolan Ryan. When Nolan Ryan beamed Robin Ventura and they had that brawl, which I do still remember. Remember when he had him in the headlock and he's just punching the top of his head, Nolan Ryan? He says he was the same age as Nolan Ryan. He brings up Gordie Howe, Mr. Hockey. You know, and you could see like a lot of people in the crowd like, who? Yeah, like there wasn't that much of a reaction. He says age is just a number. Ask me how I feel. I'm old, but I'm not insecure. I don't ask you to acknowledge me taking a shot at Roman Reigns. And he says, you know, I come out here every week and I tell you all how happy I am and how great it is to be alive, like tonight in Boston, Massachusetts. So he finishes up by saying, Roman, if you look at me and only see me as an old man, I've already won. I've already won. You've already lost. This old man dropped you in one punch. This old man in 20 minutes at WrestleMania, when you're gassed up and all of your oil and jizz dries up, that's exactly how he said it, you got beat by the old man. He mentions Gunther, he mentions Jey Uso, that they didn't underestimate him, couldn't get the job done. He says, if I have to go through all the Samoans, then why don't I bring it back? And he calls out Jey Uso. He's like, what is he going to do? Yeet me to death? And Jey Uso's music hits. Jey comes out. And Jey, you could see, this is old school bloodline Jey Uso. This is not gimmicky, yeet, yeet. This is not that guy. Jey Uso's out there and he's talking about CM Punk running his damn mouth about his family. And Jey wants a fight. He says, let's run it back now. So CM Punk says, I'm not dressed for it, but I'm a fighting champion. Let's go. And then the one word, 7 letters, one word. 9 letters, one word. E-N-O-U-T. E-N-O-U-T. 6 words. 6 letters, one word. Enough. Enough. I hate when Adam Pearce says enough. He doesn't say like all of us, like, enough. It's not like Owen Hart. Enough is enough. No, Adam Pearce has got to stress the first letter. Enough. Enough. So he doesn't want this to go down. Jimmy Uso is out there first. And Jimmy Uso is trying to get through Jay's head. Jimmy's reminding Jay, look, when you get emotional like this, you see blood, you see red. We lost earlier because you couldn't help yourself. You got disqualified. We have a tag title match next week because of you. And that's when I said earlier, Jay says, I don't give a damn about the tag titles right now. And he says, Jimmy's like, it's not about him. And Jay's like, what are you talking about? It's all about him. He's talking shit about our family. And that's when Roman comes out. No promo tonight from Roman, as you would expect, especially with 3 weeks still left. And Roman would only be 2 of the 3 weeks. So Roman comes out there. He does get on the mic for a brief second and addresses Jay. And he says, you had a tag match earlier. It's over. He tells Jimmy, get your brother and leave this ring. So you think there's a little bit of tension there, but it's not. And you hear CM Punk in the background says, no, don't leave the ring. Roman needs to help. Roman needs to help. And then next thing you know, Roman Reigns hits a Superman punch to CM Punk. And then you see Jey Uso kind of dictating what happens next. Jey Uso is telling Roman, smash him, smash him. And Roman spears him, power bombs him to the table. And then that's when you get the Adam Pearce. Enough! Enough! That's why I'm kind of worried about the no-touch rule. I think that could be coming next week. Because the week after, Roman won't be there. And then you have the final go-home. So next week, you may see something that, in fact, it may lead the following week to Jay versus CM Punk. And then the week after, who knows? I mean, they're the ones that get paid for that, not me. There was even one point, yes, when Jey Uso told Roman, he called him Joe. We never hear that. They're trying to be a little bit more real with that. Oh, and speaking of WWE real and unreal, you all heard about the Tomatonga story, right? I mean, that is kind of like the funniest thing about WWE Unreal. What happened to Tomatonga? That's fucking funny. We'll get into that in a moment. But you did hear Jey Uso, call Roman by his name, Joe. And, that kind of surprised me because no one ever called it. They'll call him Tribal Chief. They'll call him OTC. They'll call him Roman. You don't ever hear Joe. But you heard Jay actually use that. So I thought the ending of Raw was excellent. What I loved even more is, Adam Pearce is trying to get assistance for CM Punk. He got slammed to the table, powerbomb. And CM Punk's like, I don't need help. I'm good. And CM Punk is laughing. And, we've talked about that before. Some people will start laughing when they're getting their ass kicked. CM Punk found it funny. And it was a great way to close out because, CM Punk not no selling it, but he's like, I don't need help. I'm good. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. You know, it's more about Roman needing the Usos and Usos needing Roman, and the Samoans all need each other and this and that, and CM Punk is alone. Then you think LA Knight. LA Knight, you don't even know where this goes with LA Knight. You know, it was only a week and a half ago that people were telling us LA Knight is fighting Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Yeah, okay. Sure. I don't even know what you do with LA Knight at this point. What do you do? Maybe he does. Maybe he's one of the hosts, has Slim Jims, drives around the racing car and cuts a promo. Maybe he interacts with fucking Tom Brady. I have no idea. So that's how we go off the air. So right now for WrestleMania, these are the matches that are official. Only 6. Next week, I think SmackDown, we might get 1 or 2 announced this week. But by next week, that should up to 10. Then the following week, they'll start splitting the nights up. And you'll know what's on night 1 and night 2. And then you'll have maybe 1 or 2 final matches added. You know, I don't think they're doing 5 each night. That would piss off people paying big time. You're not going to get a last-minute surge of ticket sales with 5 matches each night. I expect it to be 6 to 7 for each night. 6 at the absolute minimum. 7, I think, is more appropriate. So right now, at this point, we only have about half the card mentioned. Now, look, Dom versus Finn Balor is a lock. That has not been announced yet. They're probably going to do a gauntlet or something with the women's tag titles and the Bellas. So that's another match that's going to be announced. Then what other matches are we thinking of right now? Gunther. If Gunther takes on Penta, that's a 3rd match. So now we're up to 9. And then you got to start thinking, a couple of additional matches intertwined with that. I don't know if we're going to have Damian Priest and R-Truth, defending. I think that's a very good possibility. So there's 10. And then if you end up getting something, Logan Paul's going to have a match at Mania. So that's 11. So now we're already almost up to 6 matches each night. So by next week, we should have some big updates as far as this card. So right now, CM Punk defends the World Heavyweight Championship against Roman Reigns. Cody Rhodes will defend the undisputed WWE Championship against Randy Orton. Stephanie Vaquer will defend the Women's World title against Liv Morgan. Jade Cargill will defend the WWE Women's Championship against Rhea Ripley. AJ Lee will defend the Women's Intercontinental Championship against Becky Lynch. The Women's United States Championship, there's another match. So now we're up to 12. Just add 2 more matches. Personally, and Obafemi takes on Brock Lesnar. What is missing right now is stipulations. Everything I just read, there's not one stipulation. You need to add something. 1 or 2 of these matches need to have special circumstances. I don't know what you do or who you do it with. I don't think Brock and Obafemi needs it, to be honest with you. Jade versus Rhea, I don't think needs it, because you got to be very careful still with Jade Cargill. So I don't think you want to add any type of extra stipulation there. Cody and Randy Orton is definitely ideal for that. CM Punk and Roman Reigns, I think the 2 title matches, WWE is very relaxed with rules. We've seen people go through tables and the referee doesn't call for the bell. So I don't think you necessarily need to add a stip for either of the men's world title matches. I think Stephanie Vaquer is one that they should consider. And I also think AJ Lee and Becky Lynch should have a little bit extra to it. But we'll see. Dominic and Finn, I don't think needs an extra stipulation to it. We'll see what happens with, there you go, Io Sky. If it's Io versus Asuka versus Kyrie, that's a possibility. So there's another match. Right now, just by going over that's about 13. I will admit, Jelly Roll. A lot of people think Jelly Roll, there's your 14. I'm not going to lie to you. I've said repeatedly, I think WrestleMania will be good. Most of us are not paying any crazy money. So we're watching it, whether you're an ESPN subscriber or you watch it bootleg online or you grub off of someone else's account. We're not paying a crazy amount of money. If I go to a diner and I only spend $30 on food and I say the food was okay, I only spent $30. If I go to a diner and spend $300 and the food is not okay, yeah, I'm going to have a conniption over it. So I think WrestleMania will be good enough for all of us. I just will be honest, as I just went over those proposed matches, something's missing. Something feels really lacking here. I mean, there's at least 5 or 6 matches I'm looking forward to. But, man, something feels off. So I'm really hoping next week, especially if they're in Madison Square Garden. Look, Braun Breaker, Seth Rollins. There you go. That's probably the one. Okay, Brock and Seth Rollins. There you go. So I think we just figured out probably the full WrestleMania lineup just by thinking of some of those matches. So, all right. Let's give a super shout out here. Somebody sent this earlier. And then we will get into some news. We've already gone 90 minutes. I think we'll go another half an hour to an hour. I think, especially since we haven't been on video for a while, it's kind of like I'm breaking my cherry again. I got to get back in the swing of things. So tonight might be a little longer than usual, but that's okay. Let me give a special shout out. Just give me 1 second. This is from Chainsaw Charlie. What iconic moment do I think will be part of this year's WWE Hall of Fame? I was asked this yesterday, and after thinking about it when the show was over yesterday, I'm pretty convinced. It's got to be Hogan versus Andre. I think it's got to be Hogan versus Andre. And the reason why I think is because it's an iconic moment. I think they did Brett and Steve Austin last year because they were available, and to just add a little bit extra for the Hall of Fame. But I think with Hulk Hogan's tragic death, whether you liked him or you didn't, it's still tragic. And he's the most iconic face in wrestling in the last 40, 50 years. I think you have to do that. And I also think you make the announcement next week in Madison Square Garden. Because if you're going to get any type of a pop for Hogan versus Andre, because of the history of Hulk Hogan in Madison Square Garden, it doesn't take away all the negative shit. But I think Madison Square Garden might be the safest place that you can announce Hogan Andre as the iconic moment for WrestleMania. Do it next week. You don't even need to really mention it afterwards. I mean, let's be honest, for some of you old school fans out there, are you not kind of annoyed at the lack of attention and love they showed towards Demolition at all? I mean, when they announced Demolition, it was just, Demolition's in the Hall of Fame. Like, we didn't get any, massive video packages, during the TV. They really don't mention it much at all. It's like, let's mention it. Okay, that's nice. Okay, now we can move on. Like, they really haven't spent much time on TV, focusing on the Hall of Fame. So you announce the iconic match, Hogan-Andre, do it at the Garden. Easiest way to get it done. I'm not a fan of the iconic moment thing. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, you want to praise individual matches, fine. But when you realize the thousands of matches that have occurred, and yes, there's probably only 100 or so that you would say might be worthy of an iconic moment. But the wrestlers are in the Hall of Fame, and they're the ones who created the iconic moments. You're already celebrating them. You know what I mean? Like, if someone wins Best Actor in a movie, sure, that same year you could choose Best Movie too. But you don't turn around later on, and I just feel, okay, you're already celebrating the wrestlers that made the iconic match. And the matches mentioned during the wrestlers' induction. I think that's enough. I'm not a big fan of the iconic moment thing. And especially when you look at the average age of a WWE viewer, I honestly don't think, they care as much about WrestleMania or matches from years back. I mean, I've been a wrestling fan since 79. So trust me, it's kind of like when you're growing up and you hear Culture Club or hear Wham or something like that. Like, you grew up when those songs were number one. And maybe for a split fucking second, you actually thought the songs were halfway okay. But when you hear them for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you go to a supermarket, the fucking song comes on. You go to a dentist office, a song comes on. I mean, I never in a million years ever thought I would hear "You're down with OPP" in a fucking doctor's office waiting to get surgery. Like, when you hear songs and then everybody repeats them every week and every month and every year, and then finally 10 years later, like, oh, good, I don't have to hear that fucking song. And then you still hear it to this day. You're kind of like tired of it. I'm kind of tired of seeing how many times Hogan body slammed Andre. I thought it was awesome. I remember the match. I remember the year-long build. I remember replaying over and over again, thinking that fucking the referee counted to 3. Everything about it. Just all the camera flashbulbs when Hogan picked up Andre, all the debris being thrown to Bobby Heenan and Andre when they were being carted off. Everything about it. I remember everything about it, but, I'm kind of tired of it being brought up. So, speaking of Hall of Fame, it's a good segue. Dennis Rodman, inducted, going into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2026. I will say this, okay? The early days of the NWO, I thought Dennis Rodman was awesome. I liked him when he was on the Detroit Pistons. When he came to the Bulls, I loved when people would elbow him in the mouth. But I thought Dennis Rodman being in the NWO was badass. I still have the NWO entrance theme music for Dennis Rodman. When they would splice, a lot of people, here's a little trivia that I'm pretty sure is accurate. I think Dennis Rodman used Voodoo Child before Hollywood Hogan did. I'm pretty certain. I do remember bringing it up once or twice in the past. I could swear Dennis Rodman came out to Voodoo Child before Hollywood Hogan did. But he was awesome in the NWO. To see him have that match, first, a lot of people forget it was Hogan and Dennis Rodman versus Lex Luger and the Giant. That was Rodman's first match. Everybody always remembers, the four-way match with Karl Malone and Diamond Dallas Page, in 97. But, Rodman did a great job, man. And what was cool is, listen, for younger wrestling fans out there, they're all right now making a big deal about how one time Dennis Rodman skipped practice for the Bulls. It might have even been were they in the playoffs? They might have even been in the playoffs at the time. Rodman skipped a Bulls practice so he could attend Nitro. And we remember that being covered. I don't know if it was 1998 or 97, but I think it was 98. And I remember ESPN covering it. I remember the local papers covering it. The young fans of today, they probably never heard that story right now, so they're all infatuated about it. But Rodman was badass. I do remember Rodman coming out smoking a cigarette, at some point, doing his entrance with Hogan. Dennis Rodman was really good in the NWO. The problem is, and I had to look it up because I didn't want to be wrong with this. A lot of you will remember, and I have covered this on the History Show. In fact, if you go to the week of July 30th on the History Show, you will hear me covering this in great detail. A lot of people don't realize this, but Dennis Rodman main evented a wrestling pay-per-view for Superstars of Wrestling in Australia. It's weird because some of the worst that we've seen around that time came out of Australia with wrestling. Remember the Hulkamania tour with Hogan and Ric Flair? That was Australia. And then they did this pay-per-view, Superstars of Wrestling in Australia. And I looked up the card. They drew almost 10,000 fans. But they gave us 5 fucking matches. And the main event was Kurt Hennig defeating Dennis Rodman by disqualification. Think about this. It was an Australian Outback match. And I remember trash cans being... It was like a violent match with weapons. Dennis Rodman lost by disqualification. It was just a train wreck. The Road Warriors defeated the Public Enemy to win the iGeneration tag titles. The Barbarian defeated Brute Force in a hardcore match. Sweet Destiny defeated Brandywine. There's a name from the past. And the One Man Gang defeated Tomatonga for the iGeneration Australasian. Never heard of that before. Championship. But it was a disaster. It is one of the worst pay-per-views in wrestling history. I remember they were trying to rip off the Nitro Girls. But you know what the most amazing thing is about that pay-per-view? To me, it's amazing. That pay-per-view happened not after WCW went out of business. That pay-per-view happened in the year 2000. This was not a case where WCW went out of business and Hennig, after he was let go by WWE, he needed a little work, and Rodman still wanted to do something, and Road Warriors weren't working at the time, so they decided, no, this was the year 2000. ECW was still around. WCW was still around, and they tried to pull this off in Australia, and it was disaster. It was horrible. It was horrible. But look, I have no issue with Dennis Rodman going into the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm sure he will show a lot of love to Hollywood Hogan. And I don't think he'll get booed all that much. I think just the fact that Rodman is there. And I think if Rodman is somewhat not inebriated and Rodman shows his respect for wrestling, especially back in the day, I think it'll come off a hell of a lot better. So he's going into the Hall of Fame. Oh, theme parks and things with Johnny. I love the Nitro Girls as well. Everybody in the chat room or in the comments too. I don't always push this, but since we're back on YouTube, in the comment section, post who is your favorite Nitro Girl of all time. Mine, there was one woman, and I got to meet her. And, I was kind of like not infatuated with her, but when I saw her in person, I'm like, yeah, she's as beautiful as she looks on TV. I was always a huge fan of Spice, if anybody remembers. She became like a chiropractor, right? She did chiropractic work. My favorite Nitro Girl of all time is Spice. So, but yeah, post. I mean, even in the chat, post your choices. I'm curious to see the diversity there. I would think a lot of people probably choose Kimberly Page. We even got a vote for Rebecca, which is great. So very cool, man. Very cool. We got a super shout out. Want to mention one, and I definitely want to talk about Tomatonga's fine and Ted DiBiase Jr. being found not guilty. I found some pretty fascinating stuff about that. And yeah, we got to make mention about a couple of things. Something we got into briefly yesterday about Tony Khan and his bid to buy Harvey Weinstein. That is kind of interesting in itself. But I want to give a shout out to J580 CHP Malicious. Thank you for the 20 spot, my friend. He's happy to see me back on YouTube Monday nights with Gunther retiring John Cena and AJ Styles. You would think Triple H would have big plans for Gunther. At this year's WrestleMania, who do I think he'll face? I think it's got to be Penta. But at this stage of the game, let me put it this way. You see who's being featured on television. If Gunther is not part of WrestleMania, that is probably one of the worst decisions of the year. You just retired John fucking Cena. You just retired AJ Styles. Somebody needs to attempt to put Gunther in his place. And no, it should not be Dragon Lee. No, it should not be Rey Mysterio. I'm not even extremely excited about Penta being the one. But Penta is so over. And he could talk now. And he's very intense. And I could see Penta with those wide eyes looking at Gunther. Even speaking of wide eyes, I know it's not part of the synopsis tonight, but I will tell you, I'm intrigued by Lio Rush's new character. Between the eyes and the teeth, that fucking guy, man, he comes off creepy. Oh, we always thought he was a little bit off, right? We always thought that Lio Rush was like a couple of eggs short of a dozen. He's retiring, he's back, he's retiring again, he's back, he's retiring, he's back, he's doing this, he's taking time off, he's back, he's this and that. Lio Rush has always been a couple of eggs short of a dozen, but I think he finally found his fucking moneymaker, man. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look up Lio Rush and just see what he's doing right now. You could watch the clip with him and Ciampa. It's entertaining enough, and I love the trolling with the ropes. Definitely deserves a little bit of praise, man. But I think at this point, Penta, plus Penta's a big boy. I think you put Penta standing, face to face with Gunther. I think, he will physically match him. And I think the fans would want to see Penta trying to get into the face of Gunther and vice versa. We only have 3 weeks left. We only have 3 Raws left. So you have to do something fast. I personally think Dragon Lee, who just had an open challenge match with Penta, when we had that segment earlier, when I Show Speed showed up, when Dragon Lee is kind of telling Penta, I want a match if you defeat Dominic, I was looking, I was like, why are we bringing this back already? Don't we have to build to WrestleMania? And then I said, oh, wait a minute. Maybe they have a match next week and Gunther shows up and maybe fucking gets involved and maybe tries to go after Dragon Lee again, maybe grabs his fucking mask, and then Penta gets in his face. And then maybe that's where you kind of lead this. I think that's the only reason why you have Dragon Lee interact with Penta so quickly again. I think this is going to lead to Gunther. So right now at this point, even though it's not my first choice, I would say Gunther versus Penta for the Intercontinental Championship. And I think the outcome is not as easy as we would think on the surface. But I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for that. Much love to you. And, again, I hope people understand. I'm not trying to screw anybody that tunes in on Discord. But you see right now, live, we have almost 700 still hanging out. And on Discord, last week, I think we had 31. Not everybody finds it convenient to go on Discord. Plus, since a lot of you check out multiple Monday night shows on YouTube, it's a lot easier to go from this page to this page and back and forth and back and forth. And, we want to grow. I want to try to please everybody, but we got to grow. We have to pay bills. We have to, after all this time, I think it's about time we kind of start like putting our foot down and, just bringing a little bit of more of an alternative. So that's the only reason, we want to expand. So, but thank you for that, J580. CHP Malicious. Much love to you, my friend. Very quickly. This, I think, is probably the funniest story. I thought, let me put it this way. For some of you who already saw this thumbnail, I thought John Laurinaitis using AI to try to make his autograph signing look bigger than what it was. I thought that was funny enough. That's my thumbnail from Wednesday. And if those women at the table look like Janelle Grant's, that is the reason. If anybody needs a little bit of a zoom in, yeah. I don't know where that woman, you see that woman with what is that yellow thing? It looks like somebody holding a giant candy corn above their head. I don't know where that woman came from, but yes, I did need the assistance of computer technology. I said, give me 6 women like this at ringside. And somehow it generated let's be honest, I'm Italian. I could poke fun of my own. It looks like a 50-year-old kind of ugly looking Italian woman that no makeup. When I went to Italy back in the 80s, the 2 things I remember more than anything is that the women didn't wear makeup and the men didn't wear deodorant. I can't tell you how many Italian people I saw locally, and you would what is that smell? It smells like fish. And no, it's not like old vagina. It was literally you realize deodorant is not a thing in Italy. I'm not kidding. And I actually have a couple of customers that brought it to the United States. And once in a while they come around and I'm like, yeah, he's definitely from Italy. I remember I went to Italy in 1985. I noticed all the girls, very few of them wore makeup. It was kind of funny because some women tried to dress up like Desperately Seeking Susan. Remember that movie with Madonna? I think something Arquette. You'd think you wear the negligee, you wear the hat and the skirts and all that, and you see girls in Italy dressed like that with no makeup. Just imagine Madonna wearing no makeup in 1985. And I remember the men, so many men not wearing deodorant, and it just smelled awful, man. All right, Tomatonga. This is worth the price of admission alone. Andrew Zarian is the one that broke the story. Tomatonga fined at least $10,000 because he decided for some reason to post online some behind-the-scenes footage of them doing some rehearsing in WWE. I fucking laughed my ass off. First of all, why would Tomatonga do that? I could picture if Tonga Loa did that. Like, Tomatonga is a pretty smart guy. Why would you do that? But the most amazing thing about it is if you saw the footage, it's like WWE Unreal. Like, you realize now how protected and how micromanaged WWE Unreal is. See, a lot of you may not remember this. When you see Io Sky jumping on Triple H's lap, and some people felt inappropriately, when you see editing, strategic editing to make Michael P.S. Hayes look like an absolute asshole towards Chelsea Green, that's not Netflix doing it. That's not WWE Unreal doing that. That is WWE doing that. WWE, when they push certain narratives, they record things months later to make it seem like it happened in real time. They're an entertainment company. And this is not a case where they have a meeting with the wrestlers like, listen, we're an entertainment company. We're all storyline driven. But for this, we all got to be real. And whatever happens, happens. No, you're not going to risk your investments. You're not going to make LA Knight look like a complete fool, because, it's great TV. Because guess what? Netflix could give a flying fuck about LA Knight, and Netflix could give a flying fuck, or Unreal producers. WWE gives them what they want to give. And if you look at the early interviews that Triple H did about Unreal, you will hear him say Netflix has no input whatsoever with WWE Unreal. WWE Unreal producers are very limited. It's WWE that decides what makes the cutting floor and what doesn't. So the fact that they try to have us see everything that goes on behind the scenes, and here's Tomatonga, kind of like pulling in WWE Unreal, and WWE turns around and says, no fucking way, $10,000 fine. What are you, stupid? But. No, but. This motherfucker pulled the WWE Unreal for real, and he got fined over it. I thought that was so funny, man. I thought it was fucking funny. And it goes to show you how, and listen, I will emphatically say Tomatonga shouldn't have posted it. It's stupid. It's kind of like that photo. Remember that photo? Wasn't it Braun Strowman that leaked that photo? Remember the photo when Braun was feuding with Roman Reigns? Remember? Just like all of you, I hate Roman Reigns. And then they went to Rome, and they're all standing outside some Roman artifact. And there's like 7 people standing. And here's Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman. They're posing together. And whoever posted it, maybe it was Titus O'Neil that put it up there. I actually think it was Titus O'Neil. But still, how do you even allow something like that to happen? But Tomatonga, good. He got fined. I don't know why the fuck he did that. But all right. I'm gonna go there with something. We got to talk about Toni Storm. We have to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room, and I'm not calling Toni Storm an elephant. It's a figure of speech. But Toni Storm is definitely something that is really being swept under the rug. And I'm not going to guess what it is, but there's no reason why we can't talk about it. She is the top woman in AEW. And now they're saying that she may not be on television or performing for the rest of the year. All right. Now, let's think about this for a minute. Okay. Toni Storm has a match with Marina Shafir. And 1 minute she's having a stare down with Ronda Rousey. And in the next minute, you hear Brian Alvarez saying she's not cleared to compete. And then you have some news people early on saying there's an injury. Now we hear that Toni Storm may not compete for the rest of the year. Okay. We're in the month of March. The rest of the year would be 9 months. Okay. I'm not trying to stir anything up. My sources didn't tell me anything. But if she is not injured and she is not possibly going to compete for the rest of the year, which comes out to about 9 months, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Could it very well be possible that Toni Storm is pregnant? I am not going to write that in a synopsis. We're not invading anybody's privacy. She is an on-air performer. If I'm watching a weekly soap opera and suddenly somebody disappears, I would like to know why. Why did the person disappear? Did the person get fired? Did the person get arrested? Did the person quit? Did the person get sick? Did the person get injured? When I'm watching weekly episodic television and it's just a poof, somebody disappears, I think we're not entitled to know the answer. If Toni Storm is pregnant and she does not want to reveal it to the world, that's her right. We were not entitled to know why Brody Lee passed away. I remember that disaster. I can't remember who the guy was, the torch that demanded that we had a right to know, which was just stupid. Something that's very personal like that. But when you're an on-air weekly performer in the number 2 wrestling company in the country, and you are the top female in that company for a couple of years, especially, the momentum that Toni Storm is on, and then just 1 week she's on and 1 week she's off, and people saying she may not be on for the rest of the year. If we didn't want to know about it, I think that's even worse. So the question is, what is going on? I will say this. If it ends up she's not pregnant, and if it ends up she's not going to be off till the rest of the year, somebody should be clearing this shit up now. I'm not saying that it should be her or AEW, but someone out there that has connections needs to dispel it. You don't need to dispel it with the truth. You don't need to get specific. But if this is bullshit, somebody needs to go out there and shoot this shit down. You don't let it simmer. You don't let it develop. You don't let it get to the point where people fucking believe it. So that's what's going on. So we don't know at this point what is going on with Toni Storm. She has been awfully quiet about it. Isn't she? She's married to Juice Robinson, right? He has been very quiet about it. Being pregnant is a very personal thing. And again, they don't need to tell us. But when someone, when someone's on TV every single week and then suddenly they disappear, common sense, we would like to know why, and first and foremost, make sure that person is okay. So that's what's going on with Toni Storm. Also, best wishes go out to Lexis King. What was being reported that Friday at a house show, he took a knee to the face and was knocked for a loop. They had to stop the match and they took him out on a stretcher, but he apparently is okay. I think just for concussion protocol, they did not have him work the rest of the weekend. And I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him a week off this week from wrestling. But best wishes go out to Lexis King. And obviously, we said earlier, Braun Breaker is maybe not at this particular moment. It's 12:45 in the morning. But Braun Breaker this week is at the Performance Center, and they're checking him out to make sure that he can go. personally, I don't think it's going to be that difficult to figure out. If a doctor gave clearance and says he's healed and he's able to work out, then I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out what is he going to do? How is he going to do it? How do you bring him back on TV? I think it's more of just going over the semantics on now to WrestleMania, how everything is going to be done. But it does seem like, listen, the fact that he is going to the Performance Center this week, it leads to WrestleMania. If there was no chance, I mean, look, there's always a possibility you have a setback. I'm not saying that there isn't. But if there was no shot whatsoever of him going back to Mania, the last thing you're going to do is have him pop up at the Performance Center 3 weeks before, and put that out there for a lot of people. So, and again, I've said this numerous times. Why would you put Seth Rollins back on TV if he can't do anything? What was the purpose? I mean, Brock Lesnar ended up doing nothing. This is leading to something. Now you have Paul Heyman having Seth Rollins get arrested today. So something needs to happen. Am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong here. All right. We're flying through the news. You know what? I think we could bring this up now. This is fucking funny, man. WWE put out a top 20 list. Randy Orton's most sadistic moments. And the funny thing is, the original thumbnail they showed was Randy Orton. Remember when he had the screwdriver and he put it through Jeff Hardy's earlobe? It was pretty fucking wild. Until you realize, this really doesn't hurt all that much. I could twist it like a bottle cap. I could fucking do a lot of things with my earlobe. It doesn't really hurt all that much. But still, it just is a wild visual to look at. Doesn't mean it's the most sadistic moment of Randy Orton's career. But they did a top 20 countdown of Randy Orton's most sadistic moments. Moments where he went too far. You tell me if this deserves to be number one or not. Number 20. Randy Orton sets Bray Wyatt's house of horrors on fire. That's number 20. So there's 19 things they feel are that's more sadistic than setting a house on fire. Number 18, attacking The Miz in front of his parents. Number 18, handcuffing John Cena to the ring post and hitting him with a kendo stick. Number 17, one of my favorite moments of all time, spitting in the face of Mick Foley. It's not that I wanted to see Mick Foley get spit in the face, but that feud was awesome. That was a legend killer shit going down at that time. Remember when he spit in fucking Harley Race's face? Oh my God, I felt so bad for Harley Race. He had that smile on his face that he couldn't do nothing about it. He just stood there and Randy's like, what are you going to do? And Harley Race just looking at him. And Harley Race is not even on this list. That's fucked up. Number 16, RKOing Hulk Hogan on the car. I think that's when they were doing something with Brooke, right? Number 15, breaking Batista's arm. Number 14, number 14, punting Mick Foley down a flight of stairs. Number 13, punting Shane McMahon. Number 12, punting Vince McMahon. Number 11, the concerto to Matt Hardy. Number 10, punting John Cena's father. Number 9, hitting the concerto to Edge. Number 8, setting off pyro on John Cena. Number 7, twisting Jeff Hardy's ear with a screwdriver. Number 6, RKOing Alexa Bliss. I love that they brought that back. Number 5, driving The Undertaker through the stage set. Number 4, setting The Fiend on fire. Remember that one. Set a man on fire. Number 4. Number 3, setting a casket with The Undertaker in it on fire. Setting another person on fire. Number 2, turning on Cody Rhodes. And the number 1 most sadistic moment of all time, worse than setting somebody on fire, worse than burning someone's house down, worse than punting an elderly man, attacking and kissing Stephanie McMahon. You could burn someone's house down. You could light them on fire. You could punch somebody's father. But if you kiss a man's wife, that's it, man. You know, if this was, the top 20 most sadistic moments that happened to John Gotti, you know, the top 20 things you don't do to John Gotti. Yeah, you could kill his friend. Yeah, you could set his fucking cat on fire. Yeah, you could fucking blow his car up. But you kiss his wife, that's it, man. That's it. You could do anything you want. You fucking touch his wife, I fucking put you in acid. Kissing Stephanie McMahon. WWE, you never cease to amaze me, man. Unbelievable shit. All right, we shall continue. I just want to mention this. I issued a little bit of an apology. Get off my screen, Randy. I issued an apology yesterday, even though Ted DiBiase Jr. ain't going to hear it. But the more I read about this story, I'm fucking fascinated. Because remember, his brother Brett, you know, Brett screwed Brett. Brett DiBiase is going to jail, I think. He already pleaded to a lesser charge. He already pled guilty. Ted DiBiase Jr. is the only one that pled not guilty. I did not know that originally. Everybody who was accused of fraud, everybody did plea deals. Ted DiBiase Jr. is the only one that didn't take a plea deal. Not only did he win his case after 7 years, but now he's suing Mississippi. And when I tell you why, you'll realize how fucked up this is. I'm not going to give you the whole case. I'm just going to tell you 2-3 very quick things that'll fascinate you. Basically, there was a scam to commit fraud and steal tens of millions of dollars from funds and charities that was set up to help feed the needy in Mississippi. And the people that have been in trouble for this, tens of millions of dollars. There was even an accusation towards Brett Favre, the legendary quarterback, NFL. But the claim was that Ted DiBiase Jr. set up the app where people would give donations, and that's where all the fraud went. They accused Ted DiBiase Jr. of taking $1 million and buying a house with it, buying a boat with it, and using funds for his own personal gain. And the auditor for the state of Mississippi, his name is Shad White, not Shad Khan, Shad White. He accused Ted DiBiase Jr. of doing these things. So for 7 years, this case has been going on. It is the biggest fraud in Mississippi history. And they also accused him of spending $40,000 of food money to buy himself a truck, spent $34,000 to buy a tractor. That's why the John Deere video this week was so powerful, guys. But it ends up, they found him not guilty, that he did not steal any of that money, that the people around him, the Mississippi auditor accused Ted DiBiase of this. So now he's being sued, and Mississippi's being sued because they accused Ted DiBiase of this, and now he's been found not guilty. So when everything is said and done, Ted DiBiase Jr. is probably going to make millions off of this. But it ends up there was no proof. For 7 years, we thought this guy was screwed. I mean, some people in the news world the last couple of weeks couldn't help but to write, "You're fucked." I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of those thumbnails. He's fucked. He's screwed. No, he's free. So it's pretty wild to see. Here's another one that you may not know. The state of Mississippi, this is probably the biggest burn of them all. The state of Mississippi sued the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase, his father, to recover some of this money. They were so convinced that Ted DiBiase Jr. was part of this. Somehow they sued his father. And obviously the lawsuit didn't go anywhere, but now Ted DiBiase Jr. is suing Mississippi. And rightfully so. Listen, I know for forever we all thought that he was guilty, but the more you read this case, I will tell you two things. Number one, I still don't understand why they had Ted DiBiase Jr. create the app. You would just think common sense. I would have went to Fiverr. You know what I mean? Like you hire somebody from Calcutta. You know, I give you $100, you make me an app. Like, I didn't know Ted DiBiase Jr. was a master of making apps. And the second thing is, it's kind of wild to think that he was working with 7 different other people, including his brother, and everybody else is milking Mississippi for tens of millions of dollars. And Ted DiBiase Jr. is the only one there that wasn't. Either he knew how to cover his tracks, which I don't think is the case, or they realized we found our sucker. Sometimes when you want to commit fraud, you find a sucker that is so stupid and naive, he doesn't know what's going on. Hey, Ted, can you just file this over here? Yeah, but what are we doing? Don't, just do it. Okay. Like, he might have been the guinea pig out of all of this. So, but I don't understand, like, I don't remember going on Fiverr or going on one of these and like, do you need an app? Do you need to raise money for charity? Well, call Ted. 1-800-4TED Jr. 4TEDJR. Got some ratings. We have some ratings. TNA Impact for March 19th, 244,000 viewers. Slightly down from the previous week's 259. Can we agree that so far this year, TNA Impact has been the most consistent show on TV, ratings-wise? It's amazing how consistent it is. No accusations of skewing or fraud or anything like that. It's amazing to see how consistent that audience is. We have not seen any. There was none of that new car set. There was none of that, oh my God, the first week. And then literally the second week, the ratings were not too far off. And then you realized there wasn't a big curiosity factor. That's, I think, the most amazing thing about TNA going to AMC. You know, I've always said this. I mean, AMC has a bigger audience, but if you wanted to watch TNA Impact over the last bunch of years, I'm pretty sure there was a way for you to do it. So the idea that people suddenly were watching TNA Impact, I think the biggest noise on social media that first week, and that first week was a disaster. If you remember that first week with Dixie Carter came out and all that, I think the loudest noise on social media that first week were wrestling fans that didn't give a fuck about TNA Impact. And these were not people that were going to consistently watch the show. They just figured, oh, it's the first week. Oh, let me do a show on it. And they had no intention on continually watching, because TNA Impact at some points over the last year and a half has been pretty damn good, and that couldn't get them to cover it. The only reason why they cover is because the first episode on a different network. And once that episode came and went, you realized that that loud noise was a tiny, 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 tiny little percentage. And now they're out of the way, and the hardcore fans are tuning in. So very consistent numbers. AEW Dynamite for Wednesday, the 18th, impressive. 730,000 viewers, up from the previous week's 619. That's a very good number. I will tell you, I'm very disappointed at this number. NXT, 588,000 viewers, up from the previous week's 541. But they were teasing 3 women's title matches, and this is 2 weeks before Stand and Deliver. And you couldn't even break 600,000 viewers. That's very telling. I'm pretty surprised at how low the viewership has been for NXT recently. I mean, you're 1-2 people away of getting back into the 7s, but it is a little bit surprising. Remember when they blamed it on Trump, the State of the Union? The State of the Union's on Tuesday night. A lot of people aren't going to watch it. The next week, the rating was almost identical, and Trump wasn't on. So, all right. Couple of other quick things. I definitely need to reiterate something we talked yesterday about death threats, what happened to Samantha Irvin, and hopefully we could get that noise out there a little bit more, that the IWC, the way they handle death threats now is not the answer. Do better, be better is bullshit. Do better, be better is just a talking point. I want to mention Mercedes Moné. You guys remember, I mean, I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm sure I wasn't the only one out there. But I said repeatedly, numerous times, the minute Mercedes Moné is revealed as the PWI Women's Wrestler of the Year, the minute that happens, she is going to start liquidating all her titles. And ever since then, it's loss after loss after loss. And right now, this is pretty much where she's at. I think that came out pretty good. She literally went from this to this. She's got almost no titles left, and she lost 2 more titles. She does look kind of funny when you don't have the titles in your hand. Like, what kind of reference is that? But anyway, she lost 2 more titles this past week. She, at Rev Pro, she lost the Body Slam Women's Championship and the Discovery Scottish Women's Championship to Alexis Falcon. And she is now going to face Jody Threat on March 31st for the WPW Women's title. We knew this was going to happen. She has lost like 7 out of her last 9 matches. And somehow people will twist this and say, see, Mercedes is not selfish. She's giving back. Everybody was talking about she collects titles, but look, she has no problem losing. She's helping putting people over. That's what this is going to be spun into. Personally, she's got to come back to AEW. You probably want to handle it differently this time around. But with Toni Storm, if what we talked about earlier is fact, and she's going to be off TV for 9 months, no disrespect intended, but Chris Statlander is not your answer. You might have to do something with Mercedes Moné. There's other women that you can step up, but who is that one woman that could be the replacement for Toni Storm? And it's not very easy, especially the way how they've handled some of it. You can't choose Willow Nightingale. She's already been, represented well. Mercedes Moné may need to be brought back much sooner than later. So we'll see what happens. I do want to, as we bring this episode home, do we have any super shout outs? No, we don't. Okay. I want to mention probably the wildest, dumbest, most eye-opening story that I have read recently in wrestling. And for the common viewer out there, you probably don't even think much about it at all. But when you take a step back and you think about it, you'll realize how horrendously pathetic this story is. We know about the Ricochet MS story. We talked about it last Monday, talked about it when it first happened, talked about after what happened. We even talked about it yesterday a little bit. First of all, Samantha Irving got a whole bunch of death threats. And we'll get to that point in a second. I'm not going to spend as much time as yesterday, but we'll summarize it. But something came out over the weekend, which I think is so eye-opening that you realize that there is a very sick problem in wrestling. I don't want to just say AEW because that's unfair. But when I word it this way, you will realize how sick this is, okay? Why this is even a news story, I don't know. And whoever put this story out originally should have thought twice before putting this out, and I'll tell you why. Over the last 36 hours, a story came out that when Ricochet put up the remark telling that woman that he's glad she got MS, Chris Hero of AEW, the same Chris Hero that calmed down CM Punk when he brawled with Jack Perry in the back at All In. But Chris Hero, they said, was the one person that told Ricochet to take the tweet down. Now, I get it. You're trying to make Chris Hero look good. And I think Chris Hero is a very genuinely good guy. I don't hear much negative about him at all, if ever. He is definitely one of the more liked people in wrestling. All right. Cassius Ohno may have been a disaster, but that doesn't mean that Chris Hero is not a good guy. But whoever put that story out really needs to get their head examined. And I'll tell you why. What does that say about every other goddamn human being in AEW and around Ricochet? You're telling the world that Chris Hero told Ricochet to take the tweet down. It would make more sense to say that Chris Hero was the only person who told Ricochet not to take it down. How is no one else in AEW immediately telling Ricochet, what are you, fucking stupid? Don't do that. Or take it down. It's just not the right thing to do. The fact that somebody wants to tell us that one person told Ricochet to take it down, what does that say about everybody else? What does that say about Ricochet's inner circle? And no, I am not saying that other people did not tell him to take it down. I believe a lot of people probably told him to take it down. But by telling the world that Chris Hero told Ricochet to take it down, you know what that says? You know what the message that sends? That everybody else was fine with it. And that is disturbing. That is ridiculous. Whoever put that story out there, good intentions, but moron. Because you're sending the message that Chris Hero stood out. The fact that you're mentioning one individual person to tell him to take that down, you're basically telling everyone that no one else did. Because if 15 other people told him to take it down and you just find out that Chris Hero's name, but you don't know the other 14, well, you don't mention Chris Hero's name. You just because if you know that 15, 20, 30 people in AEW told Ricochet to take it down, just because you only know one. Oh my God, Samoa Joe told him to take it. No, you don't mention Samoa Joe's name. Because then it makes it look like everybody else was fine with it. That is ridiculous. That story is probably the dumbest story that I've read in recent memory. Because that sends the message that Chris Hero is the only person that did it. And he should not have been singled out. And if 100 people told him not to do it and Chris Hero was one of them, why are you putting Chris Hero on a pedestal? Because I know his name? No. 100 people evenly told him the same thing. A lot of people like, I don't want to, it's not nobody's business. If I tell somebody privately, don't do that, you know, it's someone else should not get the credit for it. But what's even worse is Samantha Irvin getting the death threats. And I mentioned this yesterday. All right, I'm not going to show video, but this is a couple of screenshots that Samantha Irvin put up before she took her profile down. And as you could say, there's people out there not only giving death threats, but getting very explicit, especially the one on the right about throwing pieces of something in the water. That's criminal. And, you know, we brought up yesterday this one person in particular. And this person, I'm glad somebody exposed his name. And if you go a little bit further, you find out he's engaged to an individual. Now, I'm not going to post his fiance's profile because then I'm doing the same thing that assholes did to Samantha Irvin. I'm not going to take it out on an innocent woman because her fiance is an asshole. But what does this tell you? What does this tell you? One of the things that has bugged me for years is when people in wrestling or journalists or media or podcasters tell you that they got death threats. They don't go to the cops. They go to Twitter. If somebody threatens to kill my family or me or my kids, my dogs, my wife, you know, I don't have any kids, but my point is, if you're going to threaten to expose my personal information, put my kids' info out there, I'm going to the police. You have people out there that go to Twitter because it's more important for them to have 1,000 people tell you, we're thinking about you. That's so wrong. Oh, that should never happen. My thoughts are with you. Oh, I hope that person would. And you don't call the cops. You embolden people to do even worse. I'm tired of the usual people saying, we need to be better. We need to do better. This has got to stop. Of course, that's a message that should be given, but that's a cop-out. That's a scapegoat. You know, something awful happens. Oh, let me write a nice, catchy tweet that we need to be better, lead by example, and it doesn't stop anybody. Anybody who's writing that heinous shit laughs at anybody that says, we need to be better. You think those people like, you know what, Dustin, you're right. You know, we need to be better. I shouldn't have threatened to cut that person up into 100 pieces and barbecue them. and feed them to my snake. You're right. We need to be better. And I've seen the light. No, they fucking laugh in your face. They call you a pussy. What needs to start happening is these people who are threatening to hurt someone, that's a criminal offense. That's a cyber crime. Those people need to be exposed, and those people need to be reported by police. If you're somebody, with all due respect, like Brody King, I hate all cops. I'm not reporting nothing to cops. Good luck. I'll give you some phone numbers for some mobsters. And maybe if you can afford it, you'll probably have to work 150 house shows for it. But maybe if you come up with enough money, yeah, we'll get a couple of people, take care of it for you. You have to put your pride aside sometimes and call law enforcement. The only way to deter a piece of shit like this guy is when the cops come knocking on his door, or an investigator leaves a message, you need to come down to our precinct. You need to hire a lawyer. Your fiance now knows that you're telling a wrestler you want to cut them up, slice and dice them, and put them on a shish kebab skewer. I'm not saying he specifically said, but my point is the only way you stop this behavior on social media is you expose these pieces of shit and you call the cops. Let them have to explain to their mother, their father, their sister, their brother, their gay lover, their heterosexual wife, heterosexual husband, their neighbor, their job. Let them explain to anybody that loves them why they're writing this stuff. You see how quickly people stop when they realize I could get into serious shit over this. That's the only way this stops. I know there's some very good people out there. We need to do better. We need to be better. We should all get along. We're all wrestling fans. We should be better than this. That's nice and everything. But when someone is just sick and twisted to write shit like that, they're not going to listen to you. They're going to laugh and realize I got away with it. And they'll keep doing it. And they'll keep doing it. They'll keep doing it. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be the voice that's going to make a change. But hopefully some people out there, finally realize, go to the authorities, man. Somebody threatens to hurt you or your family, or you go to the authorities. Let them handle it. And you see how quickly, that happened to me a couple of times many years ago. A lot of you know that story. 2 people, internet cafe, causing me a lot of misery. And I went to the cops, and one of the 2 was they got footage of the internet cafe. They found out who it was, and they asked me if I want to press charges. And people remember the story. Kevin and I talked about it in the past. I decided not to press charges, but I wanted an apology. And, I know that sounds ridiculous, but the person apologized. And, I forgave him, never had any issue after that. Sometimes people get away with it. But if all you need is 1 or 2 people, let me tell you something. The Chris Jericho thing that happened, a couple of years ago when he was accused of, giving unwanted advances to a female wrestler, which we will name anonymous. When you had a white knight out there standing up and accusing Chris Jericho of shit, it's never been publicly talked about. It's been privately talked about. Recently, I was told, the whereabouts of this individual. But, when that happened and people were like, oh, shit, Jericho just had one of his lawyers just reach out to that person and said, yeah, you need to get a lawyer. That person realized, holy fuck, I got to retain a lawyer. And that costs money. And it's going to ruin my reputation, going to ruin this. And that person disappeared from wrestling. I do believe one day that person will reappear. But when that happened, it sent a message to a lot of other people. Think twice before you start accusing Chris Jericho of some outrageously terrible things. That's why you don't see many people after that really ever bring up that situation anymore. Even with Jericho returning to WWE, you don't see any white knights trying to re-cancel him out for accusation of the past because they realize, I better be fucking careful. Because Jericho's got a shitload of money, and it's not anything of him to just drop a couple of $100 to his lawyer and say, send a legal letter to this asshole. Send a legal letter. Let's see how he handles it now. Let's see if he goes on his podcast and accuses me of shit now. That person put his tail between his legs, disappeared from wrestling, and now has a prosperous career outside of wrestling. That's a deterrent. The only way you're going to deter these assholes is people start realizing they get held accountable. So, Nero Ferry, what's up, my friend? Tuning in all the way from Israel right now. I do see the news from afar. Crazy times, man, but you're safe. And I appreciate you. And I know everyone that knows you, especially in the chats, shout you out as well. You know, it's crazy to see some of the shit going on in the world. And, you know, we just want to make sure everybody's safe. And everybody who tunes into at least what I do, you know, hopefully I'm a little bit of an escape. You know, make no mistake about it. Wrestling is an escape for me. Doing these shows are an escape for me. Did you hear my phone just do my bedtime alert? I literally just had my bedtime alert go off on my phone. So it's 1:15. So yeah, we got a little longer than usual. By the way, Pat McAfee, you know, I'm not a big fan, but I understand why he's as popular as he is. Cody Rhodes will be on the show Wednesday. So this will be Cody's first response to Randy Orton. So if you're interested, Cody Rhodes will be on Pat McAfee this Wednesday. And as we wrap this up, two final things. I didn't even want to mention this fucker, but I figured maybe someone out there might be interested. WWE is insistent that Tony Hinchcliffe does some type of a show, this Kill Tony thing. They are going forward with it, despite the lack of interest in recent years. They're going to do a special event Saturday, April 18th at 9 o'clock Pacific time, which will be midnight Eastern, following WrestleMania Saturday. It is happening at Dolby Live at Park MGM. If you want to buy tickets, you could do the pre-sale. It goes on sale to the general public. Actually, by now, there's no more pre-sale. They'll be on sale Tuesday morning, Ticketmaster. Personally, I don't know anybody in wrestling that likes this guy. I mean, I just can't stand him. I personally think this is for WWE's own entertainment. You're not allowed to have a cell phone on at the time. You're not allowed to record. You will get thrown out. In fact, I even think they're giving everybody those bags and you got to put your phone in and turn it off and all that shit. And we open the bag when you leave. I don't know how that works, but this is like an adult. Like, they're really going to get raunchy, over the top. It's like one of these roast things. I know Paul Heyman is going to be involved with it. And I'm not saying that the WWE people aren't going to be funny, but this is going to be a show where everybody just goes outrageous. Says things that anywhere else probably would get themselves ass kicked. Like, if you think of what Paul Heyman said about Seth Rollins and his family today, that's nothing compared to what this will be. Nothing. I honestly think, truthfully, I think they're doing this event to entertain themselves. I think a shitload of people that will be there are family and friends and the wrestlers themselves and people that work for WWE and TKO and involved with the WrestleMania weekend and UFC. I think a majority of that audience that attends is going to be themselves. I think this is, let me put it this way. No one in wrestling that I'm aware of wanted this, asked for this, demanded this. So the fact that they're forcing this, they want to entertain themselves. I think this is their release. I think this is their way of having some over-the-top gross humor so they can entertain themselves going into night 2 of WrestleMania. So, and finally, you know, we were mentioning it earlier, and I definitely want to bring this up for a second. Okay. This past weekend, they had the Flag Football Classic. And there were 3 teams involved. And basically how this all went down is 2 teams faced each other. And whoever the winner of that team was went on to face another team. And basically Team USA destroyed Tom Brady's Founders team by the score of 43-16. And this was after USA wrecked Joe Burrow's Wildcats team 39-16. All right. I don't know if any of these names are recognizable to all of you out there, but Tom Brady's team that got their ass kicked, these were NFL players, I believe. It was Tom Brady, Terrence Crawford, Stephon Diggs, Rob Gronkowski, Damar Hamlin, Jalen Hurts, Ashton Jeanty, I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, Alvin Kamara, Von Miller, Patrick Peterson, Devontae Smith, and Antoine Winfield Jr. That was the Founders FFC roster that got their ass kicked. The Wildcats team was Devontae Adams, Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham Jr., Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, DeAndre Hopkins, ISHO Speed, Derwin James Jr., Kyle Juszczyk, Luke Cuckold, Logan Paul, obviously his name had to be in there somewhere, and Jalen Ramsey. Team USA, that won it all. Amir Brown, Velton Brown Jr., Isaiah Calhoun, Nico Caceres, Mike Daniels, Laval Davis, Tyler Davis, Daryl Duchette III, Dijon High, Jamie Kennedy, Laderick Smith, and Shord Theard Jr. Now, coming out of this, there was a lot of back and forth between Tom Brady and Logan Paul. Even after this event, Seth Rollins was public calling Tom Brady a clown as well. That's where this rumor, my sources tell me that Tom Brady might fight Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, that's where this came from. All right, listen, I reiterate this. I think Logan Paul and Tom Brady, they are setting something up for WrestleMania. I don't need Dave Meltzer to put, I've heard there's discussions. Yeah, and my dead grandmother heard that as well. You know, it doesn't take an esteemed journalist to say something like that. We've all heard that. Everybody in the sports world has heard that. This has got to be building to something. It's not being built to celebrity boxing. This is not being built to, like one-on-one. This is not Larry Bird versus Larry Johnson from the old video game days. This is being set up for something. And outside of WrestleMania, there's no other major event coming up where these two would be suited. So to me, I think they're expediting the Usos versus Division before Mania because of this in some way. And I think Logan Paul and Tom Brady will have interaction at WrestleMania. Funny thing is, I don't know how WrestleMania fans will take the Tom Brady. I know that sounds a little ridiculous, but let's be honest. When Tom Brady was playing, a lot of us didn't like him. When the Giants ruined that undefeated season, that was fucking epic, man. That was almost a religious out-of-body experience for a lot of us in New York watching that go down the way it did. I don't like Tom Brady. And I honestly think as much as people don't like Logan Paul, they don't deny the fact that this guy eats, sleeps, and shits ego. And anything this guy does, he tries to do it at the top of his game because this guy doesn't like to be criticized. This guy doesn't like to be told that he was underwhelming. Even with the flag football, people were saying, wow, Logan Paul did pretty damn good. This is someone where ego is everything. And in wrestling, you do want people like that. You want someone to be so good at what they do, they refuse for mediocrity. They don't want that kind of shade thrown at them. Their egos might be very fragile, but when you have someone who is obsessed with being as good as they possibly can, that bleeds entertainment. And I think there's enough wrestling fans at the end of the day realize how committed he is to wrestling now. And I think that will always be acknowledged. And if Tom Brady shows up, unless he has Seth Rollins by his side, which I don't see happening, unless he's got Danhausen by his side, unless he's got fucking big baby faces alongside with him, I think Tom Brady could get booed out of the building. Especially if Tom Brady tries to hit a wrestling move and is not very good at it. I think he actually could get booed out of the building. But Real Wyatt says Tom Brady owns some stake in the Raiders. and Legion Stadium, WrestleMania is located in Vegas. I think that could come into play, but I want to remind everyone that Tom Brady is a WWE fan. Tom Brady does not look. Listen, there's a lot of people, whether you like it or not, whether you want to admit it or not, or maybe some people still don't realize it. There's a lot of people in sports that laugh at wrestling. There's a lot of people in sports that don't legitimize wrestling, even though it's entertainment and sport. I've brought up examples as recent as 2-3 years ago on Fox TV, making fun of wrestling. And they were promoting like an upcoming episode of SmackDown, and they promoted Cody Rhodes, and one of the announcers was laughing. Like, you could tell he was laughing. Not too long ago, there were a lot of athletes that were like, why are we giving an ESPY out to wrestling? Remember Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair? Like, why are we giving ESPYs to wrestlers? There were enough voice out there. A lot of people are now scared to silence because of the business relationships. And now with ESPN and WWE in bed with each other, people are much more careful. That's why you're not going to see people going rogue like they used to. You'll see a random athlete that you don't recognize their name that will speak up. But for the most part, Tom Brady understands the deal as others. And, this is leading to entertainment. That's all it is. But Tom Brady is a WWE fan, is a wrestling fan, and does not disrespect wrestling. This is all designed. Somebody has to be the asshole. And, right now it appears that Logan Paul is the asshole. He's the one calling out NFL players. He's the one making mock apologies. So they're trying to set this up where Logan Paul may be surrounded by NFL guys eventually. But that doesn't mean that wrestling fans are going to go along with it, because they see Logan Paul is putting in the time and everybody else is not. So I just wanted to put that out there, because there's a lot of people that don't know this aspect of it. And Tom Brady's not an enemy of wrestling. Doesn't mean that he eats, sleeps, and shits wrestling. Doesn't mean that he watches it on a weekly or even a monthly basis. But Tom Brady is not an enemy of wrestling. And that you should be reminded of when you see a lot of this going down. But all right, I think we are done. I'm tired. We've gone, how long? We've gone almost 3 hours, 2 hours, 48 minutes. Okay, I think we got into everything we needed to get into. So, again, I'm happy to be back on YouTube. I'm not going to lie, this is a lot tougher. I have to get used to it. Preparing as much as we did with thumbnails and notes and, having this much ready 5 minutes after Raw goes off the air is not easy. Doing a recorded show and putting it online a couple of days later, yeah, that is 1,000 times easier. But doing it immediately after and, putting this kind of time out there, and not only that, I still have to upload this for my audio family out there. And my audio family is about 90% of our regular audience. Even though we haven't been doing video in a long time, but even the other shows, even Sundays, you'd be surprised when you look at stats, 90% of everybody tune into audio. Why? Oh, I'll do this, the Rizzler. Who has to see this face? Like, do you really need to see me on video? No. I mean, if I do something stupid, or if we have props, yeah, that's kind of funny. But, a lot of people, just tune in on the audio side of things. But listen, whether you join me on YouTube or you tune in the audio, whatever you tune in from, our Patreon family, much love to all of you. Our subscribers on YouTube, much love to you. You help that much further. Anybody out there, just spread the word. Maybe recommend the show to someone else. I know everybody's like, share, and subscribe. I'm never going to force you guys to do that. But, if you like the show, let other people know about it. Because, again, next year is going to be 30 years of me doing this. And if you would have told me 30 years ago I'd still be doing this, I would have thought you were crazy. But, I still enjoy doing it. I'm not tired. Right now I'm a little kind of tired, but, I still enjoy doing this, and I appreciate each and every one of you out there that spend some time with me. I know there are so many other choices out there, and I know there's so many ways people will try to get you to choose them over someone else. And that's fine. That's part of the game. But I think at the end of the day, what keeps this around is somebody's got to be brutally honest. Somebody's got to be straight up, say what they mean and mean what they say. And I'll leave you with this in closing. I'll give you a good example. Tony Khan putting a bid in to buy Harvey Weinstein. A lot of people out there will tell you, Tony Khan, extremely serious to buy WWE, offered $6.9 billion of this and that. What a lot of people don't tell you, and I did get my answers today for people that know where I'm going with this. The thing is that when you look at the stock market at the time, and this is very important when you think of the time frame of when these bids were submitted, and I'm not going to throw shade on any wrestling stat sites that claim that they got this info. What they don't tell you is Tony Khan offered a dollar figure per share. Okay, if you go deep enough and look into this, you will find that Tony Khan offered X amount of dollars per share to purchase WWE. Buy the shares. When you add up all of the shares multiplied by what he was offering, comes out to $6.9 billion. It wasn't even close of what the actual bid was that led to the sale to Endeavor and everything else. Here's my point. I don't blame Tony Khan whatsoever for wanting to buy WWE. All right, but if we're being realistic for a second, I used the comparison of an eBay auction, okay? There might be something on eBay that you've always wanted. Pretty expensive item you've always wanted, but, may not actually need it. But if you could get it really, 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 really on the cheap, then throw in a number. You never know. But if you're going to bid extremely low, the chances of you winning it is slim to none. Plus, there's so many legal hurdles you have to make. WWE, this is not an eBay auction where WWE has to accept the offer. When Tony Khan made the bid and WWE was aware of it, they could have hysterically laughed at this. They could have turned down and said, you know what, just for the fuck of it, let's accept his offer. My point is this. Tony Khan putting the bid was not, I don't want to say it wasn't realistic, but this was a case that let me lowball them. Kind of like what WWE did to Okada and others. Like, look, we don't need him right now. We can fucking get him on the cheap. Yeah, throw him an offer. If he takes it, holy shit, yeah, let's bring him in. Obviously, it's a much extreme, small example of it. My point is, Tony Khan put in a bid. We could have bid on WWE. We could offer $1 a share, and it'd be a bid. So my point is, putting in a bid and putting in a realistic bid, a serious bid, are two totally different things. But here's where I think separates me and a lot of others. And I think even the deepest of AEW supporters will agree that with this, even though they wouldn't say it publicly. If Tony Khan would have been able to buy WWE and WWE was sold to Tony Khan, that stock would have plummeted to historically low numbers. Because as much as you like Tony Khan, as much as we believe Tony Khan loves wrestling and cares about his wrestlers and, just really wants to just entertain fans and fans first and just, happiness and all that, investors that invest millions in WWE see what's going on with AEW and all the unknown. And sorry, if you think that they're going to base their future decisions on what Meltzer tells you, we didn't even talk yet about what that agent put out there about Meltzer, which we'll get into Wednesday because it's too much to bring in today. My point is that, you look at the pandemic as a perfect example. You saw people in the media world praising Tony Khan for not firing anybody during the pandemic. And you had those same people ripping WWE. How could you release people? You got record profits. And they didn't understand that that's why you invest. That's publicly traded company. You please your investors. You show that you try to make the most money with the least amount possible. That was attractive to investors. You have that mindset about Tony Khan. If I'm an investor dropping tens of millions of dollars in WWE, and I'm watching Vince McMahon running it for X amount of decades, and then Tony Khan comes in, and you know Tony Khan's track record and no history of making big profits other than what some podcasters or journalists will tell you, you don't think that investors in droves wouldn't sell their stock immediately? If Tony Khan were to buy WWE right now, you don't think investors would be like, there's no proof that I'm going to make money off of this guy. There's no proof that AEW is making any money. You know, I believe AEW is making a profit, but not in the territory that WWE's been making. So the fact is that Tony Khan, I truthfully believe, if WWE would have accepted the bid, probably would have had to flip it. There would have been so many investors getting out of WWE so quickly that I think within a day, if Tony Khan would have spent $7 billion on WWE, I think in a day or two, it probably would have been worth half of that. I truthfully believe that. Why would you think that investors would be confident that and by the way, why would Tony Khan want to own the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling? I sound Bostonian when I said the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling. Why would you do that? Who would you keep aboard? If you accuse WWE of being that horrible and workers all standing aside and allowing shit to happen, who's going to run the company? You know, what happens to your fan base if you decide you're going to just keep everything the way it is, keep it status quo? If it's not broken, don't fix it. And then people are like, why would you buy that and allow these people to continue to operate if they're the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling? I get it. He called WWE the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling a year later, but that doesn't take away his hatred for WWE for so many years. So it's not just a case that, oh, well, once Vince McMahon is out of there, you know, then everything is better. No, Vince was out of there when Tony Khan said some of the things that he said. So when you look at that and you're being honest with yourself, it is very easy to look at this and be like, oh my God, Tony Khan, he really tried to put in a serious bid for them. No. If he could have got it extremely on the cheap, and say what you want about Shad Khan or Tony Khan, Shad Khan's not stupid. And that's why it was Tony Khan's corporation that offered this. Shad Khan, I think, would have realized that if he would have put in a bid and WWE would have accepted it, where's the confidence that they would profit off of this? I think so many investors would have jumped out of there as quickly as they could, and that stock would have plummeted. And that's just the way it is. So thank you, everybody. Much love. I'm going to jet out of here. We're right at the 3-hour mark. And I will definitely be back here this Sunday for the sit down. You know, we have now 2 video shows a week back to back. We'll be here Sunday for the sit down. And then I'll be back next Monday night. Should have a decent Raw leading into it. We'll get into news. We'll probably streamline a little of this, you know, next week. But I want to thank you for your support. Much love. And thank you for spending some of your time with me, especially on a late Monday night. So be well, and I'll catch you on the next one. Ciao, everybody.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, Nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.